On behalf of the St. George Teacher Training Institute and today's esteemed guest speakers, Dr. Shasi Hussain and Ms. Noura Samni, I warmly welcome you to today's forum, Teaching Through the Screen, Not on It, How to Bring a Virtual Earlier Years Classroom to Life. Due to the circumstances COVID-19 has put you in, this topic is very valuable to you, so pay great attention and ask as many questions as you can. To attendees who are unfamiliar of the Institute's offerings, St. George's Teacher Training Institute has 20 years of experience in the field and they have produced 5,000 graduates and they are succeeding not just within Sri Lanka but outside as well. It offers programs in IELTS, teacher training, business, and computing. These programs are secured and accredited by international bodies, also local bodies. So wherever you go, your qualifications are recognized. Nothing to worry about there. For more information about your course details, I will drop you a link in the chat box. So when you're free after this event, preferably you can go and check it out. So without wasting any more time, let me get down to introducing our guest speakers today. Starting with Dr. Shasi Hussain. Dr. Shasi Hussain is the director and founder of Eduate, a company that provides leadership, coaching, and innovative solutions in education. Solutions that is consulting, training, or coaching, which are bespoke to meet the needs of any organization. With over 20 years in both public and private education sectors, Shazia has accumulated a wealth of diverse knowledge and experience in leadership, consulting, and training. Hence, Shazia has a proven track record in being able to add contextual value and marginal growth by having the relevant skills to assess needs, to then devise a bespoke and successful pedagogical and methodological program to enrich and enhance any organization. Shazia is also highly renowned for her authenticity, charisma, knowledge, and experience. So when consulting and or training, she has the competency and aptitude to engage and interact in a manner that ignites everyone's passion, drive, and desire to want to engage and grow. As a philomath, Shazia's ongoing love for research and learning has led her to pursue a doctorate in education and leadership at Brunel University, London, UK. Her areas of expertise: expert in leadership consulting, training and coaching, Maths Mastery Trainer, Singapore approach, Master in Curriculum Development and Design, competent in safeguarding procedures, proficient in data assessment and policies and procedures, excellent understanding of quality assurance frameworks. Her major achievements: former head teacher, international leadership consultant, led educational product development, global trainer, educational activist and philanthropist, philomath and EDD researcher. Moving on to Ms. Noura Samni. Ms. Noura Samni is a senior lecturer for Master of Education, City and Guilds Advanced Diploma in Teaching, Training and Assessing Learning. She also teaches IELTS, teaches English as a foreign language at St. George Teacher Training Institute. She has her associateship at University of West London, licentiateship in teaching drama and speech from University of West London, licentiateship in speech and drama honours, Victoria College London, CELTA, University of Cambridge, postgraduate certificate in education, Murdoch University, Perth, Australia, Master of Education, Murdoch University, Perth, Australia. She's also a member of the Society of Speech and Drama, United Kingdom, a City and Guilds Advanced Assessor, and also a EYFS Coordinator, UAE. On that note, I invite Dr. Shazia and Ms. Noura to take it over from here.
Right. Good morning, everybody, because it's morning in London right now. It is 9:34, but good afternoon, because I believe it's afternoon where you are. So thank you, Thrishal, for such a, I would say now you set the bar for this presentation today or workshop. Before we start and before we project the screen with the PowerPoint, I'm going to say something. You know, all of you are on screen and many of you have got your cameras off. Think about the times when you were teaching your students and they had their cameras off. How much interaction and engagement can you have when you are not seeing the person you are talking to? Imagine if I had my camera off and I was trying to train, it would not be engaging and interactive. Now, because the session is not about teaching on the screen, through the screen, I'm going to have a humble request. Obviously, it's your choice. I cannot impose anything on anybody, but I would be very much humbled if you did put a camera on, because at least then I know who we are talking to. The second point before we start, it is going to be interactive, so you will need a pen and paper because you won't just be sitting and listening. I will make you do some work, and so will Noura. We both have planned something interactive, something reflective, so you need something to write with because we will take your ideas back. So it's not going to be a one-way session. It's going to be an interactive, and your feedback is very, very important. I am mindful of the fact that I'm not in Sri Lanka. That's why my colleague Noura is with me to give that perspective. So it's really important. So if you have a couple of minutes to get those, and I will get the screen up and running. One more secret that I'm going to let you in, okay? Makeup does wonderful things, but I actually have a temperature right now. So with that in mind, and that's probably why you can see me heating up and cooling down, because I've got a bit of a swollen lymph node. And when I spoke to Noura yesterday, it was mild, and overnight it has escalated. So straight after the session, I have to go and pick up my antibiotics. If my energy levels can be high when I am not well, then there's no excuse when everybody is here, because the whole idea is that we as educationists engage people through our energy. It's our energy that connects them. So teaching through the screen, not on it. So we all know the pandemic fell upon us last year and things had to change. And what more did we know about how to teach online? Overnight, everybody became online teachers. And the cohorts that you work with, EYFS, early years, the youngest learners, now the challenge is far greater. So that is what our session is about today. As I mentioned, it's not going to be like your college lectures. It's going to be very practical. And some of the things I share with you today, you might think, oh, she's being too ambitious. This is not possible in Sri Lanka. I understand that. But that does not mean you should not be exposed to it. You know how they say you aim high and you get 3/4 of the way there? So the idea is I'm exposing you to some concepts that we do in the West. Noura will bring in the local context. And the aim is by the end of our session today, you take away something, you know, some ideas, some strategies that you can use in your own classroom. So already we've had our introduction, so we're going to skip that. So our core aim today is to become better at teaching through the screen, not on the screen. And to break it down, there are some segments we're going to touch on, like mindset. Very important. First thing I said, I told you that I'm not feeling great, but that shouldn't interfere in what I'm doing. So your mind controls what you do. We're going to look at EdTech and online lessons, look a bit about pedagogy, methodology, what are interactions in EYFS and how to bring them alive online. Think about assessment, innovation, why, how, and then you are going to have to do some work on reflections and create an action plan. That's why I did say that have something at hand. And if you look at the right-hand bottom, there's a quote by John Dewey. If we keep on teaching today, as we taught yesterday, what are we doing? We are robbing our students of tomorrow because things keep changing. So it's just something to think about. Mindset. Mindset is important. It is so important to have that growth mindset, to have that mindset for innovation and challenge conformity. Now, you can be the type of person who sees a problem and says, right, this is an issue, I can't do this. This is an issue, I don't have this. This is an issue, I can't do that. Or you can be someone who steps up to challenges and becomes a problem solver and says, right, yes, we have issues with technology. Some students do not have access. How am I now going to find a solution? So mindset is all about how you think. Do you develop a mindset for innovation, or do you challenge and change the conformed way of working? And why is it important to just deconstruct and redefine what innovation means in your setting? Because I have a setting, but you also have a setting. And it boils down to how you develop that. Now, my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the majority of you here are from a student background who are maybe training to become AYFS teachers or are newly qualified. And perhaps there are some who are experienced as well. But the same message is relevant for everybody, because it all starts in your mind. It's what you conceive is what you achieve. And if you have that negativity, and it's always about, I can't do this mindset, you're never gonna achieve. So it is, do you conform or do you break the barriers and have the mindset of positivity? I don't know if you've read something about the research on growth mindset by Carol Dweck, Caroldweck. She has done a lot of work on growth mindset. It's really powerful content she's put out there. There are TED Talks about it as well. And it's about the power of yet. We are all on this trajectory to get to somewhere, whatever our goals are, and some of us will get there quicker, and some of us will get there a little bit slower. But that doesn't mean we cannot get there. And that's okay. And it's the same in the classroom, whether we are looking at early years or any other cohort. Some of your learners will grasp concepts quickly, and some of them will take a little bit longer. And that is something we have to be mindful of. It's the same with teachers. Some of you will pick up concepts, pedagogies, methodologies quickly and apply them into your practice. Others might take time, and that's okay too. So it's about your belief system. It's about your attitude. It's your way of thinking and approach. And I really wanted to emphasize on mindset, because I truly believe that mindset is what makes you who you are today. If I think about, and I'm sure Noura will chip in on this one, if I think about where I was and how I got to where I am, if I did not have the mindset, I would not be here today. It is all about deciding and doing. So that's why I'm not going to spend too much on this, but you have to have the teachability index. You have to have the attitude, the willingness to learn, and what is your willingness to change and not conform. And none of us are I am not a Miss Know-it-all. I am constantly learning, a lifelong learner mindset and a lifelong learner attitude. And why? Because there's always ways we can be better. So we can actually, you can go away and do a bit of research. You can actually calculate your teachability index to figure out how you fit on the trajectory. And Louis Armour says, the more one learns, the more he understands his ignorance. I am simply an ignorant man trying to lessen. So you will have met people, and I'm sure someone's going to come into your mind who thinks, I don't need to do anything now, I know it all. And there are those who are always ready to develop. So it's important, very important. And more so now, the fact that we have EdTech, because it's here to stay. And as teachers, we have to embrace it. It's not going to go away. It's never going to leave us. The human block is always going to stay, but tech is here to stay. And the advancement of technology evokes a range of emotions in people, depending on where you sit as either a digital immigrant or a digital native. And I still remember with Noura herself, when we were learning about this in our master's degree, that it's those who were born before 1984 that became immigrants, and those who were born after became natives, because it fits in with where you are in terms of your generation. And if you are generation Z, then you've grown up with, you've born into technology. And if you are generation Y, you've grown up with technology. So you are going to be much more fluid in your mannerism and your approach to using technology in your teaching. Whereas if you are, and I don't know if anybody here is in the previous categories, either baby boomers or Generation X, they are the ones that find it more challenging. And you may be working with people from that generation. And that sometimes that frustration is there when they don't understand perhaps what you are trying to convey to them in terms of use of technology. My personal experience and expertise is the younger generation, that's who we depend on now because they know more about technology. And we should be working with those who know much more than us because that gives us a wider perspective. So it's really, really important. And aptitude is a length of time it takes a person to learn, not how bright a person is. So whether you are a native or an immigrant and you are still learning, and you might be a digital native, but still not confident, and that's okay as well. But what we have to remember is tech is here to stay. Ed tech there's lots, there's loads of ed tech tools like games that you can put students on. But remember, we're not here to put a child onto a game and let them go. We're here to utilize our skills through the screen to engage. And that's what the best part is. And if we don't adapt, then what will happen? It's game over, isn't it? We have to adapt, we change. Had you not become online teachers overnight, many of us would have lost our jobs perhaps because we had no option. The pandemic hit and we had to improvise overnight, whether we could, whether we couldn't. Some of us got stressed, some of us faced other challenges, but if we hadn't embraced it, if we hadn't stepped up, we would not have been successful. So we need to understand. And I think the other important thing is, are you using technological tools to keep learners busy in learning? Or are you using technological tools to enable learning? Because they can be effective and they can also be ineffective, dependent on how you use them. And for a moment, think about some activities, online games. I'm just going to think a number game. We have something called number blocks or phonics games or maths games, and we put children onto them and they're quiet for 10 minutes. Now, how effective is that 10-minute game? Are you then going back to the learner and finding out what they gained from that activity? Or did you just put them on that to keep them busy? Because it gave you 10 minutes to breathe. And we're all guilty of that. So please don't think we're not. We're all guilty where you have to keep them busy for some time. But the question is, was it effective? Was it something that you then probed thereafter to check their understanding? Did they take something away from it? Or was it just to keep them engaged? And sometimes it's just to engage them and stimulate them, but it goes down to what your plan was and what you were planning. I mean, Noura, at this point, in terms of technology and tools and apps, I don't know what the Sri Lankan context is about. And also in terms of mindset, what do you say? How do you find people or teachers in Sri Lanka in terms of their mindset? Are they problem solvers and go-getters, or do they become blocks?
It depends on their objective, Shazia. Okay, so here we need to break the barrier. So more than 50% of the teachers show negativity in teaching the students online. Okay, so some say it is a lot of work, some say it is stressful, and some say that they cannot achieve the objective. It is very challenging. And also from the side, as a trainer, I do get complaints from the parents, right? So living in Sri Lanka and having to experience the online teaching. So beginning from my family, from my nieces and nephews, what I've experienced is they all hate all the kids who are in the foundation stage and in the kindergarten. After a week or two, they just do not want to engage in the online platform. So now why is this? So there are so many reasons behind this, and when it comes to the digital part of it, Shazia, which you actually wanted me to focus on. So now here, the school in Sri Lanka have different curriculums. So some do the Montessori, some do the AMI, some have their own curriculum, which I don't know how to name what, and then some, only a handful of schools do the UK curriculum, and they do the EYFS curriculum, and so on. Right. So having said that, it also depends on the culture and the class of the the families here in Sri Lanka. So I would say that more than 60%, about 50% of the families in Sri Lanka fall into middle class. So probably those families would have a laptop. And I think only students who go to schools who are into the Excel curriculum and a few of the Cambridge curriculum, they might and they can afford an iPad where they use all these Apple applications, where they collaborate that into the EYFS curriculum. So, and also to begin with the workforce here, so the schools, they hire teachers who are digital native and digital immigrants. So here I would say most of the teachers are the so now what they have, they fall into a curriculum where they've been trained to read and write in such a rush. So when they are in grade 1, they should be able to read the 3-letter words. So here I feel there is a gap of creativity. Okay, so there's a gap of creativity, and it's not implemented, the curiosity is not aroused, so all of that, so very less imagination involved, storytelling involved, very less involved. More of it, so we will finally learn only to read and write when they fall into grade 1. And to begin with that, I would like to say the teachers. Now, say for example, if they are to choose a sectional head for the pre-primary, so they might choose someone of experience who weren't probably she is probably an EYFS coordinator at present, but she has a diploma of Montessori or AMI Montessori. Okay, so where the curriculum collides, and there, as a digital immigrant, she might want to follow her methodologies and train the teachers who are digital natives at present. So now here we see a drawback of the, of the strategies. So now that is why in Sri Lanka, I think we need to, make a huge change, Shazia. So we need to speak of the workforce and the teachers who are digital immigrants and digital natives, and to collaborate with them is, the understanding between each other. So they need to scaffold and collaborate, okay, for the students to achieve the objectives. So now here the stress begins at that level. So we need to unfold that and come to
yeah, I can see. And that's where frustration will be, because the teachers will train, and they will train and go into these schools, and then if they are headbutting with digital immigrants and the mindset is not aligned, then there'll be challenges.
Exactly. So here we need to change the mindset of the teachers. So that's there. And then talk about the curriculum. So they have amalgamated curriculum. Some schools have their own curriculum, and some schools have no curriculum. They just teach whatever. So it's just a matter of, photocopying and getting a double rule book and doing copywriting and, them to write. So A, need to write pages, so need to introduce us to A. So there's no activity, there's no sand, there's no water play, there's no Play-Doh, there's nothing. On Tuesday, the student needs to come online saying that, okay, I've completed 10 pages with mom and dad the whole day. So now that is why the parents stress out and saying, oh God, we're so tired, the whole day we're sitting with the students online, right? So it's like from, say, maybe they have like 2-hour sessions. Certain schools they have 2-hour sessions, certain schools they have 1-hour sessions, certain schools they have 4-hour sessions. So with the little ones, so now it's the timing. So now they are not aware of the student psychology. Those are the things that are currently happening online. So it's a lot of written work that they do, and basically the children are not involved. So like as you said, the children are not enabled to learn. So even when it comes to the actual setting, as you said, to keep them busy and all that. So Shazia, I think I will put on more as you move into throughout the session. So I will have more to say on every point that you come up with. So this is the current situation in Sri Lanka. Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is not just Sri Lanka. I'm sure that it's in other parts of the subcontinent in terms of where I've seen as well. And I think it goes back to the core foundation. What is the purpose of early years? And what are we trying to achieve? Now, getting students to write when they are, I mean, I'm not saying it's, you know, when they go into year one, you want them to be year one ready. But what about the language development? Because research says if you can speak and you're curious and you're creative and you've learned through play, then you are in a far better situation to write because you have some composition. Now, some students or some children will come from families that give their children broad experiences, travel, taking them out, engaging in conversation. Some students will come from families that have narrow experiences. Those kids have had, you know, they don't have what does the world look like and what is out there, and they may even have limited resources. So when they come to a setting, whether it's online, offline, it is where they are broadening their thinking. And early years is the foundation of learning. And something that has come through, and it's something that you guys can Google on YouTube, is the Royal Family's YouTube channel, where Kate Middleton has done some research as well. She's working on it. And her findings, not just hers, but based on other research around the world, has been that the mental health issues that adults have, they can be prevented if the foundation of learning at early years is embedded properly. That's where the foundation of a mind is conformed of a child. Things like lack of self-confidence that students grow up with, that kind of thing. So it's not just the academic, it's also the social, emotional well-being that teachers are responsible for in early years. And I think when we look at the academic side of education, we forget that these are they're kids, they're human. And yes, we've had a pandemic, and it also has affected young learners. It's also affected their thinking. It may have affected their mindset because of any personal losses they faced, their family losses they faced, any family trauma they faced. And they need somewhere where they can express. And that is what your setting is supposed to be for, to be able to be that place where learners express through drawing, through creativity, through talking, through sharing, through playing. And if you just take them straight to copywriting, because you're going through your curriculum, whatever it may be, and that is it, you're doing part of your job, but not working with the holistic child, which is developing their character and personality, because that is where it is developed. So looking at your cultural capital, what do our children need to conform to when they grow older? What do they need to be ready for? Values and all of those things. That is also important. And like you quite rightly said, it's not a teacher issue. It's more of a sector. It's the sector. It's the teacher training and the teachers and the organizations, and having consistency in policy where the issue is, because every organization will do different things in different ways. Coming back to the stress bit, where teachers felt stressed and it's more work, and I'm not going to disagree. The reason I'm not going to disagree, when you change a way of teaching, it is, I think everybody got stressed, not just in Sri Lanka, around the world, everybody got stressed. It's just that it's what support systems were in place to support the teachers, who some are better, quicker getting online, and some are not. So it is about how you work as a team to support each other. But also there was no other option. I mean, if we can't open and we can't physically teach, then the students still need some form of education. So we still need to give them quality. And I think I would say at that point it's quality versus quantity. And with regards to families and parents, it is about building relationships with them. Because EYFS is probably the specific year group where you need more of the family involvement than in any other year group. because of the age of the student. And if they have a device, they may need help with it. But what about those students, Noura, who don't have a device? How are they accessing learning? The students who don't have a laptop, the students who don't have a device, an electronic device, who can't, talk about how, EdTech insights from Educational Fraternity, how user-friendly is it? Do you understand the full usage of the tool to maximize output? This is for the teachers. Is it interactive and will it motivate engaged learners? Can all students access it? Does it assess learning? Will it save teachers time? Because our whole idea is to say, is it cost effective? These are all brilliant questions in the ideal situation, but what if the family doesn't have a device? Then what did schools do in Sri Lanka? Because I can then tell you what we did here.
So basically what is currently happening in Sri Lanka is the children who do not have a device, there is no option other than just sitting at home. So I think some schools are just trying to post a couple of the resources. So probably courier them or post it. So we have this local post office. So some schools are trying that out. So where this package goes per month, so they have themed their curriculum likewise. So depending on like say for example, so if it is letter A, the pictures that go with that. Sri Lanka have started that, and of course those schools they do collaborate with the parents. So minimum I would say some they do not even have a way of connecting through WhatsApp. So the schools, the teachers, they actually call the parents and then they tell them over the phone how to go about this, but at least some work is done. So that's the base. So level 2 is, certain things like the modeling and everything, the teacher, she WhatsApp, like the pictures, okay, say for example, I'm just giving this like grade 1, okay, write 2 sentences, using 3-4 3-letter words, looking at the picture, certain things like that. So the teacher sends those little things on WhatsApp. So probably the international schools take that approach of using the WhatsApp, even if they feel that the children do not have a laptop either. So, and then the minimum is posting the resources. So those are the strategies that are being followed in Sri Lanka. So which is not very effective, I would say. And apparently what happens to the others is the 85% of the schools. So if the child cannot log in on Zoom, so the child is a complete loser. So that's the
and sometimes it is limitations are there because of limited resources, but I guess that's what's put added pressure on teachers because they're trying to reach out. But it goes back to the school's philosophy, the school's policies, and that how what percentage of students have devices? Schools do they doing an audit? What percentage of students in our EYFS have devices? What percentage don't have devices? How are we going to support the teachers? Those who have, they can learn online. Those who don't have, what can we put in place? Because ultimately, when you're teaching, why do we teach? What do we want our learners to learn? How are we going to assess the learning? And this is the key one that we're just talking about, number 3. What if they're not learning? Now that not learning could be because they don't have a device or any other way to access the content. So what creative solutions can we come up with? Can we photocopy packs and get them delivered from the school? And I don't know what happened in Sri Lanka. So I'll give you a story of the UK context. So when we hit lockdown and everything went online from all year groups, we had to do these things. Not all students even in London have devices. There's still poverty. You always see the bright side of things on media, but everywhere you go around the world, you always have the people who can afford and the people who can't afford, and that is the reality. So there were students who did not have devices. Yes, the government pumped some money, which is, I guess we have that advantage for those students. They are called the underprivileged, and there's something called pupil premium, which is a budget that they put aside for that specific cohort, so the welfare side. But still, some students, we had to print packs and we had to send them to their house. So although it was lockdown, and I don't know if you saw the media, but in London, teachers still had to go to school. There were no students in school, but teachers still had to go to school. There was a rota. Some teachers were teaching from home, and some teachers had to physically still go to school. So the ones that were teaching, and the ones that were not teaching, they were busy preparing packs and things like that, and then getting them delivered. So I don't know, again, you can come in a little moment and explain. And so we were looking at, okay, this is a list of children now who don't have a learning device. We need to get learning to them. How are we going to do it? Then we were also doing telephone calls to families every single week in the whole school, not just EYFS, asking, how are you? How's the learning going? Is there any other way we can help? Are there any concepts that you're not sure about, and working with the family. So I'm not saying it was easier, but it had to be done because the ultimate, we had to support the learning because it wasn't happening. And if we didn't support the learning, when students return, now they are back in school. I don't know in Sri Lanka if they're back in school or not. There's a catch-up program now because they've lost a lot of learning. So it's not been easy everywhere, but it was very strategically planned. So in Sri Lanka, I'm assuming now from the feedback you've given me, the strategic planning from the top leadership isn't in place. And that is what then affected the teachers that stressed them out in their teaching because they were not getting that support from the top to say, they were being told this is what you have to do and left at their own devices. Is that correct?
Yes. And also probably say when the teachers were new teachers and they've not been trained. So they ultimately had to end up being teachers themselves, and that also not in a classroom and an online platform, that was even more difficult. So all of that together has brought in this huge, problem, and especially the teachers, say the new diploma holders. So they had to directly go into this online teaching platform without any type of a teaching experience involved. So
okay, so are they back in school now? Are teachers back in school now, or are they still teaching online?
Still teaching online.
So the idea, I guess, next part is lessons online, versus teaching online. So what's the difference? Because you can put lessons online and then you can teach online. And this is now we're going into the core of everything, how to be. And I chose this image, and I knew I would have more women on the call, but I like the image because can you see the gentleman that I chose to put on, the way he's dressed up, look at his energy. Because when we're teaching online, is how do we engage with the young learners? What will, I would say, magnetize them to want to engage? And as we are teachers, we need to bring our virtual classrooms alive. And how more can we bring our virtual classroom alive without us becoming alive? So I understand the first phase that you all faced was actually getting yourself online, which is obviously this point. Overnight, you had to become online teachers. And that takes a little bit of time to get used to and familiar with. But again, Noura, I think now, people have been doing it, teachers have been doing it for some time now. So they should be familiar with the online platform, yes? And how to connect online. So I would say the next phase is now how to bring your classroom alive, how to ignite the reality of teaching online. And moving forward, I'm just going to put a disclaimer, a personal disclaimer. In England, early years is not about writing, it's not about copywriting, it's not all about doing the maths. It is a big part of it, but it is through creativity. Something Noura mentioned slightly a while ago about the letter A and writing 10 pages and the student then brings it back. That is not done through creativity. So in England, it is taught through play. The philosophy of teaching in early years is through play. And yes, there will be discrete lessons for phonics and maths in some organizations. In some, they will not even do it discrete. They will embed the teaching into the free flow. Is continuous provision a word that you're familiar with, Noura?
No.
Continuous provision is when your classroom is laid out, and obviously online is different, is when you're giving them, you know how you're talking about the blocks. So they're playing and you're embedding the learning through play. And then they have a carpet area for discrete teaching. But the students are moving around, they're not sitting. Is Sri Lanka, they come and sit at a table and chair? Yeah, so it's learning through play. So what I'm going to show to you is a really, it's a really lovely video. And again, the whole, it is quite long, it's 15 minutes, but I would like you to watch it and make notes while you watch it. It is going to get you thinking. Remember what I said at the start. The idea is not that you transform whatever you have in Sri Lanka right now. That is not the idea. The idea is you get the exposure to how practice looks globally or can look globally, and then think about how maybe it can help you take even one or two ideas and implement them. So when you listen to this or when you watch it, I want you to really watch it with an open mind, with an open mindset, and think, okay, that looks really good. If I had these resources, this would work. If I had these resources, this would work. And just listen out, because then we can talk about the differences. What are your challenges and what is similar maybe as well. So it's about 15, this is the longest one I've got. The others are about a minute. But I think this one's really, really powerful. And it really makes you think about teaching through the classroom.
Through virtual learning, we use Zoom in 3 different main ways in my classroom. So the first way is the whole group. So it is for everyone. It's first thing in the morning. It's a way to unite and connect and have a nice morning brain smart start group time. So that's like kind of the traditional, I guess, when you think of group time, that's that morning circle. The second type of group times we do is small group. So that is when a few of my children have been paired up to work with another friend, and we work on different skills and lessons and learnings together. One of those friends may have an IEP, one of them may not, but it really works on a lot of that social piece, that turn taking, that collaboration. And then that third group time is the one-on-one sessions, and those are for friends that need very specific targeted instruction. My one-on-one friends are the ones that really need a lot of assistance and help to stay engaged and to work on very specific tasks, and that they need a lot of repetition and practice of skills. So since we have begun our virtual learning journey together, there's been 3 core elements that I've structured the classroom environment around with my paraprofessionals. The first is the importance of relationships and connections, not only amongst the students, but along the families as well. The second one is to have those hands-on playful activities, having children bring toys and materials to sessions and really learning in that hands-on, engaging way that we would learn if we were in school together. And then the third one is emphasizing those rules, so being safe, being kind, being helpful, and how those are things that they can do not only when we're on Zoom school sessions, but at home as well, and how can they do that and be successful. So how many friends came to school Zoom? 5. Oh yeah, look at this participation. 5 friends. Now, Alana, look in our jar. How many friends stayed home? 1. And do you remember that friend's name?
Kate.
You're right. Case is that one friend. The first is all about those relationships and connections. I mean, primarily, we are all about building that school family and creating the relationships and connection with not just like the teachers and the kids, but the kids really connecting with each other, our families getting involved. When everyone signs on, I always say hi to my friends, of course, but we also say hi to family members. And I mean, it is like my favorite thing that I have kids that like greet grandparents of other kids, which is so beautiful. And it's about that school family, which is not just our little class, it's the families of those children. It's a huge celebration of that. And it shows it's not even just that they're signing on to see us, they're signing on to see their friends, and they're signing on to see the grandparents, whoever it is, but they're all getting to know each other and their names. So we are still working on connections and relationships and how to build that, and putting that at the heart and soul of everything that we do, and just taking the time to really reach out with families and continue to have their involvement, because without them, we could not do what we're doing. I mean, they have been so flexible and understanding and collaborative, making sure as best as they can to be present.
A couple of the other students had smaller siblings that Miss Rebecca and Miss Amanda welcomed them into the classroom, and let them participate. And it just really made things a relaxed atmosphere, a family atmosphere, and I think it made it a whole lot better. It was really beautiful.
Something else that we've done to build relationships is we celebrate. I mean, I always say preschool is a big old celebration. We go out and we deliver a little birthday present and we post it to Dojo so that the families can comment happy birthday. So keeping those type of things still fun and playful and highlighting friends has been really helpful to build relationships. Their faces and things like that are everywhere. So they not only see each other on a screen, but they'll see each other's faces and names like throughout our lessons and activities. And my hope is to focus their attention to actually look on the screen and see if their friend is here or not. And they know everyone's name. They know if they're here or not. They know to wish well, and wish well is something that is really near and dear to my heart. So whenever a child is not there, we emphasize that whether kids are together or apart, they're always in each other's hearts. So something else we do to build relationships is we wish well. So this little friend was not here at circle time, and our friends knew that we had to wish them well, and they put out their well wishes to their friends. So from the moment you start to the moment you end, it is all about building relationships. But those are just some ways that we do it in the virtual classroom. My baby's in my lap. My baby's in my lap. This is my doll and baby. They are in my lap. The second element is hands-on playful activities and learning. I have to say, like, my teaching from the spring to now looks totally different, and it's totally improved, because rather than being so focused on like pulling things up and having things on a screen, I have toys and the kids have the same toys, and we're able to play cooperatively and take turns, and they have things in their hands. It's meaningful, it's engaging, it's playful, it's exciting.
It sort of came as a directive from the district. Try to teach as if you were in front of the classroom. Try to make it more personal, that the teacher is the focus and not all of the videos. Children can access the computer, parents can access the computer, they can put on a Go Noodle or they can put on a YouTube video, but they can't put Miss Rebecca on at 8 o'clock at night. So what is it that we can do to support that? So we actually put a box together for all the students so that everybody had the same.
I was really, really grateful for it. It's a big box. I don't know if you can see real well, but there's pictures basically going on throughout the day, whole group session, small group. We have the morning group
and then
schedule, and this is teacher time, small group. This is their packet that went along with their whole group to go with hello.
And then the lips.
And the lips were for giving, I wish you well, giving kisses to those that maybe weren't present at school.
Tongue depressors.
A whiteboard.
Yeah, crayons.
There was like number lines and letters. So everything that you would expect in the classroom, they sent, which was really, really nice.
In my heart, I do think that children do need to be active, and I wish it were my only idea, but it was a district initiative across all grade levels. They really wanted more engagement and less children logging on and just watching a video.
Instead of being passive, it's so engaging and interactive. Like, they have the toys in front of them, they can manipulate. And we are getting such great responses.
She kept them very engaged. You know, they all wanted to participate, so she did a very good job of that. Typical things that kids would be involved in, whether it's getting dressed, giving them opportunities to choose different songs for greetings in the morning, allow them to get up and dance and move around. So they kept it interesting and engaging, and I thought that was very good.
I was really anxious about it. I was scared. I was used to teaching in like one way and having all my visuals on a screen. And I was like, what is going to happen? And I would say it's definitely more difficult to manage. I mean, my room, it's full of toys. I mean, I have bins with different visuals, but the engagement has been so amazing to watch kids with actual materials play, laugh, and learn together. So that's been awesome. It's natural. That's what we do when we're in the classroom is we take toys off a shelf, and that's how we work with kids. So I feel like we are taking the old school natural approach to teaching online, but I have noticed a huge success with it and difference. It's also really based on like what are kids going to like and what are they not going to like, and how can we embed that into our sessions and work on their goals. So at the beginning, before like we really started meeting, I asked parents, I was like, what do your child really like to do? And, you know, they answered things like Play-Doh and water play and cars and people and puzzles. You know, I really take the time to think about what do they have, like what materials went out, how can I use those, and then what things do they like toys that they have at home that then I can bring to the screen and we can work on those together, and how can I convey that to families in an easy way, which is usually I send like a newsletter out with this is for the week what you need, and I take pictures of all the materials so they see exactly what they need and what's expected. Like I'll say what you can go in and get out of your box, like open it up and take that out and you'll need that all week. So I try to lay it out, especially because I have multiple friends that go to grandparents' house, so they don't have the stuff there. So parents pack their book bag at the beginning of the week so that all the stuff for that week is in their book bag so they can just get it from school. So if Monday we're working on literacy, they'll have their alphabet board page out, and, you know, we might do alphabet soup. So they'll get I have it with me because we did it today, but they get a pot.
They asked the kids to get a big spoon, a big wooden spoon, whatever they could find, and a pot, and pretend that they were stirring up their own alphabet soup. And the teachers would have their alphabets in the pot that they had, and they'd pull out a letter, and they'd ask the kid, you know, what letter is this? And, you know, she would pick one of the kids, they would say it, and then she'd put it to the side and stir the soup again and pull out another letter. He loves making stuff, so he loved it.
They help me stir, and then we can scoop out a letter and review its name and its sound, and they can point to it on their board. So it's things like everyday items, things they like to play with that we have them bring to the screen, and then we play. I mean, we always say that play is how children learn, and we believe it and we see it. During these sessions, we get tons of language, we get requesting, we get making shapes, we get writing letters. Of course, for my students that have IEPs, really intentional planning has gone into every single session to make sure we are hitting IEP goals and working on them. Again, I cannot praise the families enough for having the materials there. They're so receptive to it all. It's been a great partnership. Is it appropriate, you know, all the time for children to just be sitting and watching a screen? How interactive is that? But having the materials, following directions, playing with us, it just feels so natural and developmentally appropriate. And I've really noticed a lot of growth and engagement from the students. It's been a shift in my mindset of what I've done from the spring. I was being an online teacher. And now this year, I'm not teaching on a screen, I'm teaching through a screen. Because we can be safe, and we can be kind, and we can be helpful all the time.
All right.
So give your grown-up a high five, a kiss, a hug, tell them thank you. The third focus of my teaching is in our school family rules to be safe, be kind, be helpful. And what's so great about those rules are they're universal. You need to be safe, be kind, be helpful at your house. You need to be safe, be kind, be helpful at school Zoom. And you need to be safe, be kind, be helpful when we go into the building. And that responsibility might look different, but it's still the same. So really teaching our children what that looks like. We've been able to slowly introduce classroom jobs. So for one of our friends, it is their job to make the commitment to have our class commit to either are we going to be safe? Are we going to be kind? Are we going to be helpful today? And then we talk about what that looks like. We talk about ways they can do it at home. I'm going to pull this down because we also started a kindness tree, which is something we do in school, but why not do it in virtual school and at home? So we've talked about what it means to be kind, and we have highlighted ways that they're being kind and helpful at home and on school Zoom, and adding it to our kindness tree. So to be safe looks like things like that you have your listening ears, your eyes are watching, your arms are at your side, your feet are down below. And this is where our noticing language comes in. Oh, that's so safe. Ways that we can be kind is taking that deep breath for someone that's having a hard time, or when you need to have a deep breath, asking for help or helping someone else. Sometimes using those quiet voices, which is very important on Zoom. And then to be helpful is things like cleaning up, which is really hard. It's hard to clean up, but it's a great way to be helpful, and we get to practice that a lot in preschool.
For me and Noah, I found he wanted to be helpful with me doing the dishes, doing the laundry, doing everything, and so I like that. I want him to be able to do those things on his own, so for him to be interested in it now, I thought it was cool.
So I always, at my sessions in Zoom, say, like, you guys were all so helpful today. Your eyes were on your teachers and your friends. Your ears were listening. You were following along. That was helpful that you participated in group time. The great thing is that every single child, no matter which teacher they have, is being taught to be safe, being kind, and being helpful. And I think it's so important now more than ever as we make another shift, because we did get news that we are heading back to on-site very soon to start teaching in person. And I feel excited, lots of anticipation to finally be back with my friends, but also big emotions and a little bit anxious too. It's funny because I feel like, I'm like finally kind of in the swing of things. And now we're shifting again where we're going to have to adjust all new things all over again. But obviously we're all going to take a breath and give grace and do the best we can to make it the best experience possible.
Right, so as I did put out a disclaimer at that point, and before I pass it to you, Noura, to say something, and before we ask people in the audience either to open their mic or to put it into the chat box, whichever works, I understand from what we've spoken about already that there isn't that much play, is what I'm picking up in Sri Lanka. And correct me if I'm wrong. However, even if you are doing copywriting and teaching letters and teaching maths, you can still teach it through the screen. If I had a whiteboard here, right here, I can still teach the writing. Round the apple and down the leaf, and I can teach how to write the left sounds. I can still have a board and I can teach phonics. So I'm not just passing it on, I can still model, use through the screen. I can still engage through the screen. I can still give a bunch of resources if families can afford to have at home, like magnetic letters that they can follow and create CVC words. So for me, this video had a lot of interesting ideas and how it is not teaching on the screen, how you can use to teach through. And it was a lot of that was modeling. And even with the maths you can teach. And I made some notes and I wrote something, because obviously the play part I left, we talked about values, cooperation. If you're going to just give them a YouTube video or something, parents can do that. What is the difference that they need? They need you. You're their teacher. So it's about how you bring it alive. But because we mentioned in Sri Lanka, it's very much content driven as opposed to play driven. I also said, okay, you can teach the writing, the letter formation, modeling, and then while you model on the screen, the student should model on, and they can hold it up you can look at everybody's at the same time. You can see how well they've done, and you can point out. Like, for example, if I asked you all now to write something and show me, you could all show me, couldn't you? And I could see straight away who has written what correctly and what not. But also you can still be creative and do things like, okay, we're going to make chocolate cookies tomorrow. Let's have a guess. What does a shopping list look like? And it may not be perfect writing, but or whatever, they might jot something down, and they might be able to cook with their family. So it's making it engaging. So still more fun. So what do you think on this note?
Yeah, Shazia, to begin with, what I would like to add on to this is the teachers should believe in themselves. They should be confident. And what is lacking here, I would say, is they do not establish their presence. For example, it is formally done, so everybody comes when it's, say, for example, it's 8 o'clock, and the whole class says, okay, good morning, teacher, how are you? And the teacher says, okay, are you all ready for the lesson? And then that's how they begin. So, at this point, I think the teachers, they need to believe that, positive relationships are a crucial rapport at this point with the little kids. So before they could begin, so however much they try to instinct the knowledge of whatever it may be, maths or science or the writing skill or the phonetics or the reading or whatever. So they need to learn to build a positive relationship with the children, okay? And the children also should learn to make a community through, yes, this is what I've brought in also to show. The white, I know the whiteboard, because everyone is going to say all the resources are expensive. Yeah.
This was not in my plan, and I know that I'm going to sit here and rub a board, but it's, how they say, good ideas come in the flow of thinking. And I think that's what teachers need to, you plan.
Yeah.
But when you're teaching, suddenly you might get an amazing idea and you improvise. And that's why teachers are meant to be creative and innovative and use your boards to model, to write, to teach.
Exactly.
And that straight away removes teaching online to teaching through the screen. And if I'm modeling and I'm telling all my students, right, I can see you all, look at me, but show me your pen, let's wave it, let's do some exercises, let's get our motor skills warmed up, and sitting up, is everybody sitting up? But Miss Shazia, because I'm having to use a board, I'm not sitting like you, but I want to make sure you're all looking. And when I'm modeling, if I go round the apple and down the leaf, flick, if you've got cursive writing, then your turn. So my turn, your turn. So it's putting those little steps into place when you're teaching students, whatever you're teaching. Yes. And because you mentioned copywriting a lot, I thought it'd be good to clear my target board. That was my target board, by the way, so I rubbed everything off now, because I put my targets down for things that I have to do every month, because otherwise I won't remember. It has to be on a board. But this one simple board, which is probably the most economical tool you can buy today, which is not usually as expensive as buying an iPad or anything else, but it can make a huge difference to teaching through the screen. So I'm going to let you carry on now, because I know you have a board as well. So you planned yours at the time.
No, it was the very same thing. I got the whiteboard for. No, for like to teach, because the feedback skill is also lacking among the teachers over here. So then again, they would say, okay, we do not have money to buy the happy faces or the sad faces. So then again, they could use this, and then they can draw the happy face or whatever and say, so if they have reached their targets now here, I'm sure this is it's not very expensive. So every student, they can afford to buy one of these little whiteboards. So say if they have written A the way the teacher wanted to, so maybe you can say, yeah, Excellent, Mike. That was amazing. So you get a happy face. So, you can use the whiteboard, as you said, even in the classroom to say, hi, have you been, or you've got a new bag. So the teacher allows in time for the children to interact with each other, but it doesn't happen here, unfortunately. So through circle time, they could teach, introducing their names, and circle time is a very important thing for the little ones, which most of the teachers think that they cannot be bothered wasting their time for this interaction that should be done to build in relationship and making friends within the class before they could focus on to the curriculum. So now basically this normally takes a month, but here, unfortunately, so they just introduce themselves, say, I showed this monkey, and said, okay, so they're going to do that for 2 days and they're going to stop.
And just on the chat, someone's put, Nora, I'm so happy that the school I'm currently working is following all of these methods, which was presented in the video. We engage with the families. This is from Rochelle. We engage the families of students, do thematic dressing. For letters, we teach example for letter P. We dress as princesses in a kingdom, and do the lesson in an interactive way. We do crafts, clay molding, exercises, dancing, and singing. The kids are really adopted to this new way, and they have lots of fun. Most especially, they love attending the class. That's what we want, don't we? Attending the class. And good relationship is built with the little ones. They do new things, share videos with us, such as gardening, creative crafts, etc. We make handmade backgrounds rather than virtual, and do the best to the kids. The only concern is the special kids. And if you remember in the video, I mentioned something IEP, which is an individual education plan. And she said, I'd like to know how the special kids via the online platform. Example, a child with ADHD who doesn't like to sit in front of the screen. And I think, Michelle, we will cover that in a moment, because I did talk about whole class Zooms, and then she also talked about that, and I picked that up. Small group Zooms, and then one-to-one Zooms, or whatever platform you use. Because yes, differentiation aspect is also something which is really, really important. In terms of special children, Miss Noura, how do you think, what is the current practice?
Yes, so the current practice basically here, nothing is done, but as a special educator for over a decade working with verbal autistic children, okay, and non-verbal autistic children, children with ADD, children with ADHD, probably it is even difficult to get them sitting in front of a laptop, like how Rochelle says. So here, so what you can do is, Rochelle, and for all the other teachers who are here listening to me in this platform, is you need to prepare this IEP, which is the individual educational platform where all the skills are engaged. So now here the psychologists, so depending on each of the children, okay, so ADHD, so all the ADHD children will not face the same behavior. Okay, so you will see each child is different. So you may have a child, 10 normal children, 2 ADHD, 1 ADD, 1 autism, 1 Down syndrome, 1 mentally retarded student in the class. Now for those children, we wouldn't recommend, okay, a whole class teaching platform, because they freak out, they're scared of the sounds, right? So you have to collaborate with the special educator in your organization. Okay, so if you are to do it, if you are not engaged in an organization, you may have to go and get the records of the doctor who is dealing with this particular child. So you have to know, what the neurological disorder is. Okay, so probably these children, you cannot expose them to red color. They freak out. Autistic children, they do not like red. So you cannot expose them to sensory development. Okay, so they have issues with all of them. They do not like a crowd. They do not like the screeching, the screaming. Okay, for example, page 1, literacy skills, receptive skills, language skills, mathematical skills. So it goes on like that, depending on the child's age, okay, and the development order. So so it is only you and your special educator or the psychologist in your school and the doctor who is working. So here you are involving the parents and explaining them what they need to do, and they could say probably post videos to you, okay, and probably post videos of how they have been going on with the writing skill or with the sand play, on how they have been reacting. So it is totally and if you know, along with the IEP comes the ABC, so you track the behavior of the child there. So at the beginning you can't, the very first day, if it is okay, I wonder what your name is, I would like to know, that's it. So you're going to do that for 2 weeks until the child your objective is achieved. So for autistic children, it takes about, say, 5 months for them to identify themselves, for them to know. There are so many strategies. If you want to know basically what should be done, so you need to work involving the parents. So you need to introduce the synchronous and the asynchronous learning system. You need to get not alone, but you need to, unless otherwise you are a PhD of psychology or you are a clinical psychologist. Other than that, I wouldn't recommend you to be doing your IEP all by yourself. You need to have the support of the doctor who is handling the child, or the clinic psychiatrist, or the special educator of the school working on this. And you cannot get the child involved. So when the child's attention is increasing, and when the child is getting involved with the parents first, because you see these children, they do not even get involved with their parents. So you get into that, so you need to collaborate with the parents throughout. It's a lot of work on the teacher, right? So week by week, maybe every 2 days, you need to speak to the parents and see what's happening. Did he throw the things at home on the floor? So, there should be all of, us working on this child to see a good objective being reached as a teacher. So I wouldn't want to take much of Shazia's time here. Shazia, you can add on to it.
I think, no, all I will say is, as a teacher, as long as you know who those students are, and just like Noura said, it's a process, it's professional, it's not for you to do it on your own, it's collaborative, but just be mindful when you're planning for everybody else. Noura mentioned colors and things, then you just eliminate them. If somebody can't tolerate something in the classroom and you know that, it's nothing wrong with just eliminating that. At least then you are demonstrating inclusive practice. So not using one particular color, for example, is not going to affect everybody, but it will make a massive difference to keeping the class inclusive. I'm conscious now that we're nearly I don't know, it's 4.5 hours difference maybe where you are, I don't know what, but here. So the next bit when we move forward is just a day in the life of. So a lot of you talked about the time, the stress. Is 1 minute media, 1 minute video. And it's just to give you an idea that you're not the only ones, you're not on your own, right? It's across the globe. It is about preparation, it is about organization. So it's just a day in the life of a virtual EYFS teacher.
Now we are going to start with some simple counting within 5.
Good morning everyone and welcome to today's math lesson.
Okay, so the first game that we are going to play is phonics throw.
Hello everyone! Now we are going to do a little bit of maths together today. A typical remote learning day in reception begins with a morning video call with the whole of our cohort. We say good morning to the children and we sing happy birthday to anyone that may have a birthday that day or may have had a birthday over the weekend. We explain the activities for the day, and this is an opportunity for parents to ask any questions and ask for further support if they need it. It's also an opportunity for our children to share anything they would like to share with us and their friends. After the call, we stay online for the rest of the morning, there to support any parents if they need extra support. They contact us through the chat. Our teaching assistants lead small group activities, and these activities are live for a maximum of 10 minutes. The activity might focus on phonics, maths, speech and language, whatever those children need. At 1:30 we have another afternoon video call. This is a live lesson. Each day has a different focus. On Mondays, we teach letter formation. On Tuesdays, we do a fine motor activity, so we might go to the dough disco with our children live. On Wednesdays, we focus on maths, and on Thursdays, we have a show and tell. We finish our day at 2:30 with a story time for all of the children. All of these calls are optional. We do recommend to parents that they attend them, but we would like it to also fit in for what works with them. This time, I'm going to touch a number, and I want you to show me that number with your hands. To access Teams, children have their own username and password. They are able to log in, and this is something that we practice a lot at school. We've created a reception team for that cohort of children, and through that team we are able to talk to parents, we are able to arrange calendar meetings and pop our resources needed for that week there. So we deliver our lessons through a mixture of videos and a live lesson a day. We found that videos work very well for our cohort, and we have had brilliant feedback from parents with those that have older siblings, and it means that they're able to access the videos when it's convenient for them and a time that their child is particularly engaged. We have a phonics and a maths video a day. These are uploaded onto our team, and we have our live lesson every afternoon. The children also have the option of having one-to-one calls with us, and these are arranged through the chat.
Jog. Let's have a go together. Okay, what's the first sound I can hear in jog?
The children access our videos through the Stream tab. That's where we upload our phonics and maths videos to each day. In the files section, we have created folders for each week of home learning, and in there is the home learning school timetable of additional activities and also any additional resources they may need that week.
And let's write the number 5. Short neck, belly fat. Number 5 wears a hat.
The evidence of the work that we receive from parents are through photos and videos. These are uploaded to our observation programme, Evidence Me. We give direct feedback onto the photos and the videos.
Open your eyes. What's the tricky word? Yes, that's right. It's the tricky word. No.
The parent feedback has honestly been brilliant so far. They found the videos particularly helpful as they can access them at a convenient time that works well for them. They said their children are really enjoying the morning video calls and being able to see their teachers and also their friends. They have absolutely loved story time. They've explained that it's a really good end to their day, and they've loved having the option of being able to have one-to-one calls with us if they would like them.
That was just a very quick one to build on the previous video. And again, it was using, whether you use Google or whether you use MS, obviously we all use email and we all use some system, but it's how she emphasized on MS Teams and how they work as a school using MS Teams as their form of delivering videos, uploading work, and keeping everything in one hub. So it's a systemized way of keeping your resources, and most importantly, I would say, is organization planning, organization, implementation. So as long as we are planning and we are organized, we're not going to be perfect, but the system is in place. And then other teachers, and this is the important part, can also borrow. If we have one hub where everything is being kept and you've got experienced teachers and less experienced teachers, what do? We share good practice. And again, teaching through the screen with resources like Noura showed with the whiteboard, with the props like teddies, saying hello, greetings, uploading videos as well if they need to access at different times, a mixture between live lessons and recorded lessons, but not YouTube ones from their own recorded lessons. So what would you say about that, Ms. Noura?
Yes. So what I feel is they need to, it's best that they have real objects and things about show and tell. So now this, to create a positive bonding and to boost their self-esteem. So we need to give the students an opportunity for them to be talking to their friends and the teacher. So now here, this is lacking. For example, so if I take the very same Teddy, so we could do a show and tell session. So, okay, children, I would like to, I'll give you 1 minute to go out and get your favorite toy and come in front. So they would either bring their teddy or whatever, and yeah, so can you tell me what that is? So why do you like that? And then you give the opportunity for their friends to react. Oh, so one of their friends will say, it's nice, it's lovely, I've got the same too. And then here, what is lacking in the students here is their self-esteem is not boosted through these little practices. So it is best, without showing all these video clips going on and going, to have something real, to use what is at home, to get the students to talk about that. And believe me, teachers, so once you respect their thoughts and values, you know, your bonding with them links. They'll start loving you. They'll wait for your session for the very next day. Okay, so because you've given them value on something that they like. So now here is where the positive bonding begins. So say, for example, the child who was there, okay, on video, and the child is like, okay, so the very next day, what do you think? Okay, hi, Mike, hi, Tom, how are you? And how is your teddy? Is he sleeping? So what did you do? Did you play? So you give a little time, about, you know, not much, 3 or 4 minutes for them to be talking, right? So now these kind of things should happen. It is very, very, very important. Interaction and communication. Yeah, I see the next slide, Shazia.
No,
right.
I just led on from your point. It was more like we were discussing that, but I thought your discussion is leading on quite nicely to enable all our participants to be thinking, what are the key ingredients then for teaching online through the screen? And although it is, and you're quite beautifully demonstrating the 2 key things, interaction and communication. Because when you are teaching online and you want to interact and communicate, it's only when you are communicating and interacting are you teaching through the screen, rather than just putting something up on. Just like the examples of the whiteboard and utilizing that, just like the videos we shared of good practice, and just like the circle time you keep emphasizing. And most importantly, and I can see it within yourself, is that whole bringing yourself alive, you know, the engagement, the excitement, you know, you improvise as a teacher. I've always said to everybody that teachers are like being on a stage drama. You know, whether you are feeling well, whether you're not feeling well, whatever mood you're in, once you're on with the kids, you have to change who your real personality, even if you're an introvert. We teachers become extroverts on a stage because that's how we are. That's how we bring that magic into the classroom. There's that TED talk I mentioned, and I can't remember the exact name, but it'll come back to me in a moment, that children learn from people they love. You know, you know, I know there's this philosophy, we're not here to be liked, we're here to be taught, we're here to teach, but we learn from people we love learning from, we like. If you all reflect back into your learning days, think about the teachers that have still stayed with you. Who are they? Why? Because they showed they care, that you matter, that, you know, that you are of some value, not just giving. It's not about just giving information. It's about valuing who you are, engaging with you. And as Noura, you mentioned earlier about those relationships as well, that are so important. I know that Vishal was planning a break. I don't know at what point he is planning a break, because the next part, Noura, was your slides. You know, where you're going to go through some of the practical, I know you've touched on quite a few, but what we did was, you know, these thought bubbles about key ingredients and discussion was to unpack the content that we have gone through so far, and think about things like, you know, whole group Zooms, small group Zooms, and targeted Zooms. And it goes back to the Rochelle who talked about special children, and all of this connecting online, whether it's whole group, whether it's a Zoom or MS Team. I use the term Zoom, it really means any virtual platform you use. Whole group, small group, and targeted. Now, it looks quite a lot, and it's got to fit in your work setting, and it's got to fit in your schedule, and it's got to fit in your week. So that doesn't mean there's an expectation this is done every single day. It's how you plan it out. And there may be times where you have support or you don't have support. In one of the videos we watched, she mentioned teaching assistant. So yes, a lot of the early years settings in England have a smaller ratio of an adult with a student. So they will have been employed. And when we went online, they would have had additional adults to help with the online teaching. So when the teacher does a whole group Zoom, we may have additional adults available to do small group Zoom. And then we would have, Noura, a special education department, like you said, the specialist. And in that specialist team, there might be a few adults. And those special children in that school would be identified, and they may get targeted sessions, the one-to-one Zooms. So although those students would get the whole class learning and even group learning, they would get additional one-to-one, meaning just targeted based on their IEP, short sessions, not 1 hour, short but more frequent. So I know that's something that you wanted to talk about. And
for the whole group setting, I would suggest it's best that the teacher makes it a rule where the teacher gets the opportunity to see all the students. So then it is there the relationship and the connection begins, right? So here, I think that needs to be the base for the teacher to be able to see everyone and make sure that she mentions names practically. Approximately, I would say there are about 20 to 25 students in a class in Sri Lanka, right? So throughout the session, maybe she should make sure that she's going to read out at least one student's name at least once. Like for example, for example, okay, how are you? Okay, so if one child comes in and say, yeah, teacher, okay, hi, Noura, we've been good, how are you? You look sad, why is that? So I could say, yeah, I was tired and all that, so to promote the speaking, they should maybe organize a 40 minutes of the lesson if it is a whole group Zoom. So not feeling stressful about the fact that they need to be completing a given syllabus in this span of time. So now that is where the stress begins, Shazia, with the whole group. So the teacher knows, okay, so once the child begins to feel comfortable in this virtual learning platform, so the teacher quickly swaps on to, okay, now today's lesson, we're going to learn, okay, A. So say, for example, so now that we have introduced using the whiteboard A, so that doesn't mean teachers, you all need to just teach. So where are the songs? You can use Jolly Phonics. Please don't use the YouTube link. Please stand up. So for example, to help them operate the laptop. So it doesn't matter where they are seated. So it doesn't have to be a formal session at all, So here what they do is, Shazia, the parents, there is a table, there is a, laptop, and that's their so-called study room. And then they quickly 8 o'clock, they come in and sit in front. And so then they get, lesson conscious. So they're not comfortable with the speaking and all. So it's quite formal. So the little kids, they need to be trained to be comfortable. So once they are comfortable, when the speaking comes in, okay, for example, then they can swap on to their lessons. So for example, okay, the snake is in the grass, the snake is in the grass. snake is in the grass, so who can recognize the sound? So, try to elicit the answers from the students. So you need to act. There's no point playing any YouTube links. Please dramatize in front of the laptop. Please dramatize. Yeah, role play. That's the right word, Shazia. Okay, role play. Please do the role play. Use the TPR methodology. Okay, so you keep doing this. You will see the children doing that and falling at home, falling on the sofa, falling from the bed to the floor, and then they stand up and then they wiggle. So you don't want to comment on it. You say, okay, all right. So what you can do is to get their attention span now. So when they go on doing this, you will see all the 20 children are haphazard from one place to another. So you will say, okay, now this wicked witch, you make up a puppet, so that puppet, you can name that puppet abracadabra or something. You say, okay, abracadabra says, everyone be silent, and then, get the class back. Give them time to be
their voice, can they improvise their voices to engage the students as well, using characterization in their voice?
Exactly.
And you mentioned relationships and the connection through circle time. Already you mentioned bringing toys and puppets. These are all things that I've kind of pulled out of the videos so far. But it's about teachers now thinking, how am I going to be doing that? Can I do that? How am I going to build my confidence? I think it's important, values and rules. Just because you're online doesn't mean you negate values and rules. I think it's nice for everybody in the morning to say good morning to each other, interactions through questions, and have those conversations, get families involved. Give them outdoor activities to do. If you have, post it. Tell them to go and collect leaves or collect twigs or whatever, and go out and post things and send them gifts. It helps build relationships. Some of them might be too ambitious, fine, but when we were online, I think it was nice to get a letter, because it's when you're too much online, you want something a bit more tangible. So I don't know if you've got anything on, because we've got several hows that are coming up from the video. So you mentioned quite a few of these. I don't know if you've got anything else to add on to this one. There were three slides.
And the next thing is to value the students. So when it comes, say for example, now the teacher would say, okay, now we're done with English and we're moving on to Maths. No, that's not the way. So when you are swapping on, you just show something like this. Yeah, what do you think we're going to do now? Yeah, we're going to talk about shapes. So, the transition from one subject to another, you say, okay, who wants to be the teacher? Who would like to teach the shape? Would you like to sing the song? Okay, for example, okay, ha ha ha, look, okay, get them, get the shapes talking, So the shape says, ha ha, look at me, I'm square. Okay, so who wants to be the square? And you get the students singing, for example, ha ha ha, look at me, I'm a square, can you see? Ha ha ha, look at me, make a square just like me. Square, shall we all make a square? Yeah, is everyone? So you set the rules at that time. So I want everyone standing. So obviously these things should be prepared by the parents. So you give them the resource kit, or you post the resource kit home, or so this should be done beforehand, before the session. And it is how you present it through the screen is what matters. Okay, not just say square, semicircle, diamond, rectangle, triangle, circle, done. Okay, I'm going to revise tomorrow. Not like that. So you give them the opportunities. Who wants to be the teacher? And you would say, me, I want to be. Okay, can you take? So probably that child's square is red or green or whatever. So that child, and then the others, okay, shall we sing with Tom? Shall we all sing with Sarah together? Yes. So you promote learning virtually like that. So that's another methodology that I would like to add on.
Noura, Rochelle put another comment in, and it's a valid comment, and it's like you're teaching, through interaction and students are responding, then it's also valuing the responses. So even if within a session, we have in our mind that we're going to value every child by acknowledging something they've done, because every student will have done something. It's about, because you know what it happens. Students become more active when their success is celebrated, and they become passive when they're like, oh, she never sees me. I'm never noticed. You know, it doesn't matter how hard I try, I'm never recognized. So when you know your students, and especially those who are a little bit reluctant learners, as we call them, the ones who don't usually put the effort in, and we see that the quicker we recognize someone's effort and we acknowledge it and value it, and as we say, big it up, if you like, they suddenly get happy and think, right, you know, she noticed me. Now I'm going to try even harder. So it's about knowing your students, isn't it?
You know, the teachers want to do it very fast, so they don't give that positive feedback. So it is very important for the teachers to mention the name. Oh, Sarah, oh, wow, it's amazing. Okay, carry on with your work. And then you need to judiciously supervise the rest of the class. And even if they are trying, you say, oh, that was good, try, continue. Do you need my help? And obviously you do have teaching assistants.
You know, you're talking, it's all about, I really like, you know, yes, we need to stimulate the children through singing and props and everything. What about any physical exercise?
I doubt whether they do, but they basically don't do anything. You know what happens at this point? The teachers give up because the children, they all wiggle and struggle, and then the rhythm goes haywire, and then they want to stop. But you need to have the patience to set the rule. To set the rule, they need to set the rule. So
I think it's about having fun. It's not about being perfect. I think teachers need to just relax and have fun with the kids. And you know, kids engage more when teachers make mistakes. And you say, oh, I got that wrong, right? Who's now going to teach everybody? And you pass the baton, if you like, to another student who can take over and say, who's really good at leading on this particular maybe rhyme, song? And you don't have to do it all yourself. Or you can choose a couple of students and say, who are you going to partner with, and let them lead that. And that's also stretching some of the students who are more able as well by giving them a lead role, I would say, in the session. I think as teachers, sometimes we think we have to do everything. And I think we have to let go and allow us, it's okay for us to be facilitators, and sometimes let some of the children take the lead and let them feel, you know, proud of being selected. And then we can say, today I've chosen, you know, 1, 2, 3 children, whatever their names may be. And then tomorrow I'm looking out for engagement and enthusiasm, and who knows who can come. Or you can put names in a box and pull names out. You know, it's finding strategies that engage the kids and them wanting to impress you so that they are the next one on the stage. So
Shazia, if you can give suggestions on how to go about on improving the writing skill, because the whole class Zoom is not practical. Because you will see each one has their own pace, and it's very difficult.
What we tend to do is, you know your children, so you do the whole session with whatever, you know, whether it's a circle time activities, but in your 25, 30 students, you kind of know what groups people fit in, and you can categorize and you can select times for specific group teaching. And when you do group teaching, you then make homogeneous groups where they are all sort of very similar. And it might be 3 groups, it could be 4 groups, and it could be 4 groups of 4 students that are roughly at the same level in their learning, if you like, because it's easier to teach them through synchronicity, where you are modeling and they are doing. It just does require thinking, and it does require planning, and it does require extra effort doing. You can quite easily do it in a whole class Zoom, but you know the impact's not going to be there. The whole class sessions are more for the singing and introducing maybe and giving out concepts and focal time. But when you're doing targeted teaching, targeted is now, you know, that this group can do CVC1. This one is ready to do more elaborative writing. And this group perhaps can write sentences if they are of that ability. And that's when you can then take their learning on, because you don't want to hold them back and constantly teach maybe CVC when some students are ready to move on to writing phrases and punctuation and that kind of thing. And that goes back to the teacher's knowledge, the teacher's understanding of her students or his students, and then how they plan it in. It doesn't mean it has to be every single day. It just means it has to be scheduled in a way that it'll have impact. And then the one-to-one sessions, they are usually very much about those students who need that one-to-one IEP support. Even in small groups, reading lessons have worked, reading comprehension, because when you've got a smaller group, if I'm on Zoom and I've got 5 students, I'm able to see who is responding and who's not. If I've got 25, I can't. But that doesn't mean that the small rooms the small sessions have to be 1 hour long. The best interventions or the best learning, if you like, takes place in a short 20-minute quality teaching, quality learning. And I think personally, that's what the fear that teachers have is they think, oh, more work. I have to do a whole group Zoom, a small group Zoom. It's not. It's short, quality burst of teaching that is sequential, that will move on quickly. So you're not spending a long time teaching. You're giving the content and the students are doing. And it's about them having that practice. And you can see what they can do, what they can't do, reteach that, and then build on it. So spatial repetition, which is the metacognition of retention, because there's no point of teaching if they're not retaining. And the same with maths. It's all about teacher confidence, knowing the student, and what impact or what outcomes they are looking for. There are 2 types of teachers. There are those teachers who teach for the sake of teaching, that this is the content, I have to teach it, and that is it. And there are those conscientious teachers who teach for outcomes, who know that they have to keep tweaking and changing and adapting their teaching to get to better outcomes. It's a bit like you're going on I'm going from London to Glasgow, and I can take one route or I can take a second route. If I plan my route and I know where I'm going to get a better outcome. But if I don't plan my route and I just go with the flow, then I'm going to take longer and I'm going to get lost and I'm not going to reach where I'm supposed to reach on time because I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it. Does that make sense? So I think that's what teachers need to think. What is my aim by the end of the week? So when they do, again, I don't know, and I'm going to ask you to interject in a moment. When teachers plan for the week, we plan with outcomes. By the end of this teaching week, these are the objectives that need to be met. Majority of the students should be able to do this, this, and this. And then the daily plans are feeding into that weekly outcome, which is the weekly outcome is feeding into the termly outcome, if that makes sense. So it's strategic, and it's not just teaching for the sake of teaching. And it is thinking about, okay, the students even haven't got the foundation yet. I need to go back one step and embed that and then move forward, and not just giving because, oh, I just have to teach. And I don't care if they can learn or not, that's not my problem. So that's the attitude. So we have to have the right mindset and attitude in terms of learning outcomes. So what is your experience on that?
Yeah, the experience is like what you said. So it's about, I don't care whether they learn or not. So by September, when the schools begin, the teachers, the students should be able to write from A to Z, or they should be able to read 3-letter words, which is not practical with the ongoing methodology. So now here, basically again, Shazia, it is about the mindset of the people who are teaching and the people who are actually planning the lessons. And so here, what they do is apparently, I think it is more teacher-based. So if the teacher feels it's quite a lot of work that they should be doing as a teacher to be inculcating all the skills in the children before they could begin their school session in September, the best is, I'm sure they have their teaching assistants. So it's better to provide them with some sort of a training on how to teach online and then segregate into small groups. So if the teacher takes, say, for example, if their school is from 8 to 12, there's no point one teacher doing the lesson throughout, because the maximum concentration span is about 20 minutes, Shazia. I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, yeah?
So, it's even the actual crux is usually the research says that it's the student's age plus 2 to 3 minutes is where the actual is. And if they're only 5 years old, that's like 7-8 minutes is really their main focus band. But if you can expand it, 20 minutes, the students are not, and they're very young. Think about us. I'm sure people on this Zoom as well. We're trying to make it interactive.
Ms. Noura, on the context of what you're speaking right now, we also have a relevant question from Michelle. She asks, how many hours can we expect a child to spend online coursework each day? So can you comment on that?
Yes, so probably about the attention span, it's about 20 minutes, and say probably an hour or an hour and a half, but that doesn't mean the next hour should be all learning. It should be play. So Shazia, if you can give us suggestions on how to inculcate play online.
Yeah, I've got to actually, when I move forward, because I was going to say, so the whole idea is based on what we said about the hows, is you need to be, as a teacher, well-planned, well-resourced, and organized, right? That is the foundation of successful teaching. And successful teaching enables happy children, because on the other side of the screen, that is what you're looking for, because you're looking for that excitement in them. So in terms of, I'll do something. In terms of play, there's lots of games you can play online as well. That can also, when we talk about play, obviously you cannot create a learning area in the person's house, can you? You cannot create the blocks, the different zones that you have in your classroom when you are online. But there are lots of games that you can still play. So you can break your teaching down, and whether we call it a brain, a gym, or time to refresh and rejuvenate, I think teachers have to understand that games are learning. So, for example, I'm sure many of you heard of the game Simon Says. So I would normally sort of put my laptop on some height and stand up and teach. Why? Because the students, you can engage them. You can say, right, children, we're going to play a game. Let's play switch, and give the instructions. When I say switch, you do exactly as what I do. You're going to copy me. And if I don't say switch, but I tell you to do it, you are not going to do it. Let's see who's going to be the last person playing in the game. So it'd be everybody, and everybody's cameras are on, and I'll say, switch, touch your head. Switch, touch your shoulders, and they have to copy me. And then if I say, touch your knees. Now, because I haven't said switch, those students who touch your knees are out. And then they all become, oh, that's not fair. And I say, okay, that was a practice. Let's do it again. And you're teaching them listening skills. You're teaching them coordination. So these are all skills that are important, part of learning, but not explicitly like maths and English. And it breaks down the lessons, and to have, like, I would say, a toolbox of games that you know really well, that your children love playing, that develops their listening skills, their coordination, their thinking, is really, really, really powerful. This is just an example. Again, do teachers in Sri Lanka have like a toolbox or a toolkit of games that they play with students in between? And literally it takes 3 minutes 4 minutes, the kids start laughing. You'll have kids who, oh, that's not fair. I did it, you know, having that kind of feedback but the bottom line is you're building that relationship. They're still going to be giggling and smiling. And some of them are going to get upset. And you know as a teacher who's going to get upset. So you will already have planned, oh, it doesn't matter. You know, I don't know, Mustafa, next time you can lead it or something. So you need to be encouraging because you're also teaching them that they can't win all the time. You know, we are going to have people who lose and celebrating the ones that do. And if that game is a regular game, then they look forward to it. And young children really, really look forward to it. Just like not just games, but songs and poems that they like, because it develops language. Language development, fluency, pronunciation, and all those skills. Let's just be honest, that's what our families are like. Storytelling, and storytelling, you know, this is a game, storytelling, oral storytelling, you know, using actions. Once upon a time, there was a little red hen. You know, early one morning, she stepped out of her house. And what did she see? She saw some corn. Who's going to help me plant the corn, said the little red hen. And you use masks. You know, you use masks. And then, no, said the bull. No, you know, the oral storytelling. And then you teach this to the students. And then you start doing choral storytelling. So when you are teaching, the students learn to retell the story using the actions. And then when you pause, they can carry on retelling the story. So when they have learned the story, they've internalized it. And when it comes to retelling on their own, they've got the vocabulary. So things like who, every time they use that word who, or they know, they will be using conjunctions in their writing. Does that, so it is being creative and learning stories. But then the downside is you have to be a passionate teacher. You have to be one who is ready to go over and above and do the work, which is learn. And if I'm really honest, I wasn't even going to share that story that just came into my head right now, but the kids love it. And then you can say, right, you talked about attention span, 20 minutes. For the next 20 minutes, you've got the resources in front of you. We're going to make a mask. We're going to make a mask for this little red hen, this little red hen, and then we're going to tell the story in character. So you're just going to cut, and it doesn't have to be a perfect mask. You know, it can be paper, they color it in, their fine motor skills are being developed, you know, and they might hold it or however. Or it just might be a part of a hen. It doesn't have to be full, but they are involved through play as well as through learning. And then you might say, right, some children are going to do, you know, you three, Sarah, John, Mustafa, and Aisha, can you make a mask of a hen? You're going to be the hen, that's your character, but you're going to be the bull, you're going to be the cat, you're going to be the cow. You make that mask. In 20 minutes, we're going to tell the story together. And we're still doing what we would do in the classroom. The only difference is we're doing it online. So we can engage the students through play. It is a little bit more teacher-led rather than child-led, because it's very hard to do child-led learning when you're not in control of the environment, but it can be done. Other ways is having resource boxes where you can say, you know, for learning this week, get your toys or your things that you like. And you mentioned earlier, show and tell. So that is also, these are all incorporated through play and also through learning language. So it's just, it goes back to this bit, the creativity. You know, teachers, every child needs at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about him or her and engaging. And teachers are known to have creativity. You know, it's a supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. But at the same time, that point in the middle I've put, you need to have resilience, you need to have patience, you need to be motivational, you've got to put the effort in, you've got to have a vision. You know, there's so many skills that are required to be an EYFS teacher, but even more so to be one that has to teach online, because ultimately that's how you're going to get happy children. Children are happy when they love what you teach, and how you teach is more important than what you teach. And Noura, you talked a lot about that. I only put one slide in, and I'm going to just sort of, you're all not
I really liked your idea of the storytelling. Being a speech and drama teacher, I think that the core on storytelling methodology was something.
Yeah, I mean, pedagogy relates to the how of or practice of educating. It refers to the set of instructions, techniques, strategies which enable learning to take place and provide opportunities for acquisition of knowledge, skills. But the methodology, if you're teaching through play, because different institutes will have a different methodology, but part of it is, if it's early years and if it is research on play and if it is through experiential learning, what about observation? Because the whole idea is, as early as practitioners, you've also got to observe the learners and see how they respond and how they develop and how they grow, and visual methods, you know, as Noura mentioned. So we have to remember the purpose of us as practitioners in early years and why we are there. So this game or play or whatever we want to call it, whether we use oral storytelling, I'm very, very much into the favor of oral storytelling without a book. You don't have the book. You learn the story, you teach the story. The whole class learns the story. You break it down and you start off with, once upon a time, there was a little red hen. You know, early one morning, she stepped out of the house and she saw some corn. Who is going to help me plant the corn, said the little red hen. Not I, said the bull. Not I, squeaked the mouse. Not I, you know, quacked the duck. So it's up to you which animals you use. Oh, very well, I'll do it myself. And so she did, and you stamp your feet so you can stand up and teach it. And so you just get, and it's a very repetitive story. So then she says, who? So she's obviously said, who's going to help me plant? So once she's planted the corn, it's going to grow. So who's going to help me water the corn, said the little red hen. Again, not I, said the bull. Not I, squeaked the mouse. Not I, quacked the duck. Oh, very well, I'll do it myself. So you go through the steps of planting, watering, cutting, grinding, carrying the flour, and then you make bread. And when the bread is baking, and is that, what a beautiful smell that everybody can smell the baked bread. Can you smell it, children? Can you smell it? I can smell it. Smells so delicious. So who's going to help me eat the bread, said the little red hen. I will, groaned the bull. I will, squeaked the mouse. I will, quacked the duck. Oh, no, you won't. I made it myself and I will eat it myself. And it opens up whole questions. Was it fair? Did the hen do the right thing? Shouldn't she have shared the bread? So you can go into a discussion. No, because they didn't help her. But does that matter? You know, so it's the whole thing, but a simple story can take you into a PSHE, personal, social, and emotional development aspect of learning as well. And when you teach the story and the children learn the story and you spend 4 weeks on this, like proper time, they really understand the story and they wear masks, you can do so much work and it can become part of a thematic learning experience. Then when they do sit and write, no matter what quality of writing they don't have to think about the composition anymore because they have the story. They are only focusing on the transcription because the biggest challenge our students have is creativity. And when they learn lots and lots of stories over a period of time, they become more creative in their authoring stories because what do we do naturally as authors? We take stories from people that we magpie ideas from authors that have always resonated with us. You know, think about the time you last wrote a story or something. It's always inspired by somebody. Nothing is original. It's always an innovation. So for your more able students, and this is the philosophy of Corbett oral storytelling, P-I-E-C-O-R-B-E-T-T, and he teaches this, and he says your the cohort or the students who need to just learn, it's just imitation. Then you can take some students into innovation who can maybe change one thing out of the story. It could just be the setting. And then there's students who are ready to go into invention, who can then create their own. So in a way, you can differentiate through level the child is at, but also keep everybody on the same playing field. So it is bringing creativity into teaching and making it fun through learning. And Noura hadn't planned the oral storytelling. It just came spontaneous to me when you said to me about examples through play. But I think storytelling
because actually me, how I do the storytelling, I normally use a big book or I use a picture, but then this way of teaching stories without any props is amazing. Yeah, and also inculcating language. Yeah.
Even getting the children involved in making props gives them the ownership of the story, and they get more excited. And you can even send them templates that they can cut out and color in and use as well. So that's that. Did you want to talk about this bit? Successful virtual teaching tips? I think before I ask you to go ahead, I think energy is important. Hydration care for yourself, lighting background. But what you wear, for me, the really bit now is how you present yourself as a teacher is really, really important when you come onto screen. This is my normal space where I sit. This is my kind of in my house, classroom, office, whatever you want to call it. And even I haven't set it up for my session with you guys. It's how it is on a day-to-day basis. I do have a table at the back. I do have my books. It's not always tidy, but it is my background. I don't use a virtual background. I think personally, I think it's important to use a real background and not a virtual background. I think when you're teaching with a virtual background, you can get immersed into the virtualness of your virtual background. Sometimes it's good when you want to give students a bit of role play, like I'm at the beach, guys, look where I am today, I'm on the beach, but it's got to fit in the context of your teaching. So I'm going to ask you now to think about what do you think in terms of virtual teaching are your favorite tips?
Do you have some tips? Why don't you continue, Shazia? How can you take it?
High energy. Do you think that we should have high energy and dynamism when we teach?
Sure, we should. As kindergarten teachers, there shouldn't be a moment where we shouldn't be dehydrated. I know.
In some schools, I don't know if it's going to help anybody, they had virtual observations as well. So as teachers were teaching online, some schools did online teacher observations. Did that happen in Sri Lanka? Fatma saying yes. So Fatma, can you elaborate to your yes? I can see you on the screen. I can see your smile. So
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to, even if you opened your mic and wanted to say, because I'm going to skip all of these because I have another video about interactions in EYFS.
We can have Fatima discussing her experience with us. Yeah.
Sure, thank you very much. It was for me, I've been teaching for the senior school, though this is so many new things I have learned. I also have worked for, I'm also working for the primary section. But what I did was, we have been continuously having continuous teacher professional development workshops. And also, we also were observed while we were doing the lesson. Now, when this COVID issue came, we have to switch online immediately. But 1 year before, we introduced laptop in the class itself. And we started with the year 5 and 6 working parallelly, having online teaching educational games with the lesson coordination. So it was quite, and we were using MS Teams. So it was quite easy for us as we, the things, online learning, it was not that challenging. But what we came across was it was quite tough for the children to sit and listen from morning till 1 o'clock, just the online thing. So we adapted few other stuff. So we were getting scaffolding pattern and modeling. When you were talking about the modeling, so everything you were just hitting back to me. So this technique we used during the lesson time, and they trained us, and they were observing whether we are following those steps. Okay, and scaffolding, yes, we have to, especially to year 5 and 6, though they are a little bit big, even the information we should be giving them one at a time, so that child can absorb information, and also it will be more productive, as you said, Dr. Shazia. Shazia, no? Yes, as you said, it is the quality versus the quantity. So we were going through, like, giving, we make sure that information given specific and just a basic one, and the aim and objective also was given beginning of the PPT. And as a language teacher, because I'm teaching French language, so as a language teacher, what main focus is, yes, we need to learn how to speak before start writing and reading. So that will, because that will trigger it out for the students to work out the writing skills and also the reading skills. Because when it comes to language, we concentrate all 4 skills: reading, writing, and also spoken, and the listening. So just the starting is the spoken one. So these things were observed based on our language, based on the teaching strategies and how we have been using, how we have been trained. Based on all those things, so the observation was done, and they were given the feedback also. Now, I had a feedback because what I used to do is, when I scheduled the activity in Teams, it always posted immediately. Now, some of the students, we have differentiation, though some of the students are really capable of doing the activity before the lesson. So they're rushing up and they do the activity and they finish it off, but with the aim and objective is not achieved. So as a feedback I received, they said, Rehana, it would be better you post the activity after the lesson done, so that students not going to rush and complete the task. They will be just doing after the lesson. So this is the feedback was accurate. They were given relevant information, which is I should be concentrating. So that was my observation and the lesson. Thank you.
That's good feedback. And also because you moved from, I know this session is predominantly EYFS, and that's why you'll find that I've kept it for EYFS, but primary is my favorite phase, particularly for year 5 and 6. And I would say that, you're absolutely right. Give them, one piece to work on at a time, but then let them have in your 1 hour or whatever time, you're facilitating it. So you start it off and say, right, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do X, whatever you've asked them to do. And you can observe, because I think we forget, doesn't matter what age, observations tell us a lot. Like, for example, if you've given a mathematical task, if they're using their fingers still and they've reached year 5 and 6, what does it tell us? It tells us they're still not fluent with their times table recall. Or, learning, watching learners do their learning also tells us quite a lot about where they are in their learning, levels of confidence. Something that I'll do at the end, I do have an activity as well, another one, which I will share. So I hope everybody has a piece of paper and a pair of scissors, because I think it's a fun one. But it's really, really important to encourage students to think out of the box. So thank you for sharing yours. I'm just going to quickly play this one, because this one is about interactions. And this lady is really, really good at explaining interactions in EYFS. And when you watch this, again, watch with an open mind and think about interactions with the adult and the child. Now, the interactions here is not online, but how can you take those face-to-face interactions into a virtual space? And that is the mindset you should be watching this.
I'm Ali Ovelli. I'm a class teacher at present working in nursery. I've been at Carter Hatch for about 5 years. I'm responsible for 75 children in nursery and 6 support staff. Interactions are everything. It's in these moments we assess, plan and teach, and this process starts with all adults being available to observe and listen to children from the moment they walk into the setting. Because we start by observing the child, the interactions are respectful, exciting and engaging. Interactions take account of each child's background, abilities, additional needs and interests. Because we start with the child, we know the child. I support all my team in working in this way by being a good role model and coaching when necessary. Experience has taught us that the most powerful learning happens when we let the children lead the interactions and the adults guide them. There are a few instances, such as story time, when the interactions are adult-led. Interactions might include modelling language, demonstrating how to do something, explaining a concept, facilitating a process, commenting as children play, or by encouraging children to think by asking, "I wonder how." Our interactions are our teaching. It's really important to have quality interactions. That's when we build up relationships with our children. The more you listen to them, the more you understand where they're at ability-wise and what they're interested in. When we first start in September, we're just listening to children, playing with them, letting them take the lead so we get to know them. And then you know then how to move their learning on.
How do you do it in the cake?
You'd like to make a cake?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would too.
You'd like to make a cake? Okay, should we go and have a look? I believe it's quite natural for them to just go towards something that they're interested in. They come into the setting and they're off. They have a very natural, strong desire to go and do and learn, basically. For some children it does take a little bit longer, but once they feel safe and we've built a good relationship with them and they feel confident in their environment, they know where things are, it's not really an issue. For children who don't initiate interaction, we try and understand why, and the only way you can do that is by getting to know the child. A good child-initiated interaction always follows the same sort of pattern. We observe something, we quickly assess and plan what we're going to do in our head from what we've seen, and then we implement something. So the next steps is done for the child in that moment right there. For example, if the child was struggling to do up their coat, if they're struggling with the zip, we would go over and give them a bit of instruction and hopefully they would then be able to do it themselves.
It's new.
Oh, it's a new coat. Is that on the zip's a bit stiff?
Yeah.
That's it. Just try again, see if you can get it around the right way.
Children initiate interactions all the time, so they might come and ask us for help. They might come and want to share something with us, something that they've made, something they've drawn, something that they've seen. They could just want to tell us something. They initiate interactions all the time for lots and lots of different reasons. We assess what we see and hear throughout the day by documenting it on children's learning journeys. Every week there's also 4 focused children in the morning and 4 focused children in the afternoon, and that means that they have a learning journey up on the wall. So all the interactions that we have with them, all their learning is documented, written down on a sticky label and put up on their learning journey. With each interaction, if it's appropriate, we will take a picture and that will go with it. We also have a planning in the moment sheet, so any activities that we do with large groups of children, obviously again all child initiated, we would document that again with a picture. So we assess the children in nursery termly, and that is all based on teacher knowledge really, and we do that as a team as well. So I'll sit with some of the support staff and we'll assess the children together. We have such a good knowledge of the children because all we do is follow their lead and listen to them and play with them all day long. So we remember a phenomenal amount actually when we come to assess them. We also document the children's wow moments. So the first time that they do something on their own, independently, that gets documented as well, and it goes into their profile books. It's really important to differentiate our responses for every child because every child is different. When an adult responds to a child, we take into account everything we know about them, their family life, their ability in all areas, their confidence levels. It is really important. It's how we push learning on, it's how they progress in those interactions. So every interaction is differentiated for every child. The timing of the interaction is really important. If you move in too soon, you might put a child off, you might scare them, they may not ever go near that piece of equipment or anything again. So it's always best just to stand back, just watch, just listen. You have to allow them to struggle, to know that they can't do it yet. And then you would assess the situation and help them to overcome that problem. And then you've developed their confidence and you've shown them that they can then do it themselves. Prior knowledge of the child informs everything about the interaction. So whenever we're interacting with a child, we just can recall what we've done with them before, what they like doing, and we use that to inform the next steps, the planning in the moment. One of the things that helps us to judge whether an interaction is successful or not is levels of involvement. So if a child stays highly involved, then we carry on. And as soon as those levels of involvement dip, they move away or they show that they're not so interested anymore, then the interaction has naturally come to an end. Working in this way, allowing the child to take the lead, is so magical. There are magic moments happening all the time in nursery and reception. It's amazing because the sky's the limit. The motivation factor is already there because it was the child's decision to build a car or to make something, and you're just there supporting them. So the levels of involvement are very high for most of the day, for most of the children. It's an amazing learning environment to be a part of. When you allow space and time for these child-initiated interactions, you get to know the child so much better because you're not pulled away. Every minute of every day is constructive, I would say, for every child. It develops confidence like nothing else I've seen. I really, really believe that every young child should have this experience in nursery and reception, definitely. You have to have trust in the children and you have to be calm and just let go. And it is teaching in a very creative way. It's on the spot. But if you've got time and you've got the right management around you and the right team around you who are positive and supportive, the sky's the limit. Early years practitioners have hundreds of interactions with children every day. In each interaction, they are observing, assessing, planning and teaching, and this happens continuously. If they get this right, the child will make progress as a result. Hundreds of tiny steps of progress are happening every day. Sometimes we get it wrong, resulting in the child losing interest or becoming disengaged, but as we become more skilled, this happens less and less. In this school, child-initiated play is truly valued and its potential has been demonstrated through the progress that the children achieve. The adult-child interactions are a key part of this process. We are constantly looking for opportunities to move learning forward. This relies on every member of staff contributing and interacting. This means teaching all day long. This is no mean feat, but we have very skilled staff who are passionate about this way of working and have seen the benefits for our children. We trust that children want to learn and we have found a way to facilitate and support that through our interactions.
Right, so I know we got a question because this, when we mentioned interactions, I did say it's not an online experience that I'm just going to share, but how can some of those experiences go online or through be taught through the screen. And somebody put, I think it's Shanika, how can we take this outdoor activity in our Zoom class session? Can we do it practically? Now, how I would do it is that planning goes back to when we were talking about planning and talking about limiting. You can't do everything, but think about what resources might be available or you can easily get, like water, and how water can be facilitated at home and taught through the screen, and maybe Play-Doh or some of the practical things like that. Cooking, if we're talking about cooking, how involved, again, it's about knowing your children and knowing your setting. How involved are the families and will they facilitate? Because you can't teach, do the cooking with them because they're not in your setting, because you're on the screen. But how can that happen? What do you say about that, Noura? Because the video was mainly about interactions, about how important interactions are, how important that adult pupil interactions are, how you are assessing all the time, how you're taking the learning forward all the time, and how you are capturing the learning, whether it's through a learning journey or whatever. We are going to touch on assessment in a short while, and how those wow moments come through, and how it's all about involvement and valuing. But where do you think, in terms of the
now specifically talking about the outdoor activities, to specifically answer her question, so about outdoor activities, so I think it's best, so like how we do weekly, we need to have probably a meeting with the parents and to implement Shazia, as we spoke yesterday about the asynchronous teaching, so which we anyway, we were expecting this question to come up at any time. And then so what best we can do is you address the parents on how you are going to get about getting the children to be doing this outdoor play activity, and definitely you get the resources ready before a week or so. Say for example, if it is water play or sand play, you capture the moment of the child doing that, even if it is trying to ride a bicycle, right? You video it and you post it to the teacher, right? So you have that probably could be an e-learning portfolio. So because we are doing everything online, so probably we can implement the e-learning portfolio or the e-learning gateway, either where you could take photocopies of everything that you do, where you capture so normally what's happening, I don't know if it is happening in Sri Lanka, because I've not been in an AYFS platform in Sri Lanka, but outside Sri Lanka, when I was engaged, so what we do is we do have the iPad where we capture all the moments of their learning journey on outdoor play areas, and we gather them and take a print out and add on to it, so to see their improvement from January to December. So here, now that it is online, so what we do is it's best you take a video and post it to the teacher. Right? So
it is involving, so it does mean
it is involving,
and it is having that relationship with parents, and also knowing families, because you know as teachers who those families are that will engage, and you also know who those families are who often don't cooperate. And it's also finding ways, and it goes back to right at the beginning when I put the mindset, is be the solution focused teacher, with the mind find solutions, not identifying barriers and thinking this cannot be done because we have an excuse for everything. Life will give us an excuse for everything. And we have to have the mindset, I'm going to find a way. And if that way means spending that little bit more time, maybe picking up the phone, having a conversation with the family and making them understand the importance, then that can be. And you know, you talked about the asynchronous way of teaching. It can even be that they have a small plate or a tray with sand, and they can do letter formation in there. or Play-Doh. We can make, there are plenty of recipes online how to make Play-Doh at home, but it's good for your fine motor skills and things. So it's creating maybe a resource box or a toolkit of some simple playful activities. And Noora, I understand you can't, the other thing is, depending on the family, maybe they have a garden, and maybe the student can access Zoom from the garden. And maybe you can take yourself outside of a room and do it as well. And that way to make it a little bit different. But it's about knowing your families, isn't it? It's knowing them. But the whole purpose of that content that I shared was looking, I'm not going to play this one because she mentioned about it, is interactions and in the moment planning. So interactions is how you engage, and in the moment planning is predominantly you're still planning, but you're letting the children lead the learning. So you are looking at what the students are doing, and obviously it's difficult online, so it doesn't always fit in there, but taking their interests. You know how she mentioned a lot about understanding the students' interests and using their interests to take the learning on. So if they're talking about, maybe you have a circle time activity and the students are talking about a particular topic, then how can you plan that topic into your teaching? Because we all know, unless we're not interested in what we learn, our engagement, if we're interested, our engagement is far greater than when we're not interested. And I know that a lot of you are here training to be teachers in early years, or trained because of the impact of in the moment planning. I thought I'd put up 2 books. And again, like myself, I know someone mentioned about theory. I'm a very practical person because I think learning is about being practical. And these 2 books are very much pictorial and guide-like styled written books. And they talk about planning in the moment with young children as a practical guide for early year practitioners, but also for parents, and planning in the moment with 2- and 3-year-olds, and what is child-initiated play in action. Anna F. Grave has done quite a lot of work. If you Google Anna F. Grave, you will find some videos that she has shared and some content. I think it's very important to be a learner, an ongoing learner, and look at what other people have done in that, because these are the sort of key areas in international EYFS. It is in the moment planning, and it is those interactions. They are the key buzzwords in the EYFS world.
Nilofa asks whether the outcome has to be tied. Let me just read the question to you itself. Now, do you think the games to be related to the main idea, aim of the lesson, to make it meaningful? Did you get the question?
Games don't always have to be, they can be if you get a good fit, but the purpose of the game is always just to, you know how sometimes you need to move away for something and come back to it. So the games are usually how you feel best fit. They can be related to, it is good if it's related to, but if it's just something for a brain break or a gym break, it can be as well. So it could be, right, I think we've been doing a lot of thinking about this. We're just going to quickly have a game to change our thinking, to refresh ourselves, then we're going to return. Or if it is related, it can be related. There's no hard and fast rule. The whole purpose of the great game is to keep the energy going, to keep the students thinking, and not let them sort of slack and fall asleep. That's why they're like brain gym related activities. It's the teacher's knowledge, and it's, the teacher knows the students. It's all about what she judges best. I think that's where we teachers perhaps have that fear of right or wrong. I think we have to let go of that fear and say, you are the master practitioner in your room. You know the students. You know why you're doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Shazia. I hope that answers your question, Nilofa. And moving to Nuan's question, she wants to know if there's a specific time where you should allow your kids to start writing. Is there a certain time, or during the session, is there a specific time you should allow them to write?
I want to let me elaborate on that, but for me, I don't think there's a certain time. I think it's again knowing before you take someone into writing in early years is about the fine motor skills development as well, and do they have the skills of holding a pencil and letter formation. I see too many students get to year 2, 3 who don't even form letters correctly, who do letters like they do a circle and a line down, and that's P. So if you are teaching cursive writing or continuous cursive writing, they can't do it because right from the start, the letters haven't been formed correctly. And so it is usually how the curriculum has planned it out. In England, it doesn't start until late reception, going into, before you go into year 1 that term, sort of the summer term reception, so that when they go into year 1 in September, they have some basic knowledge to take it forward from there. But that's where they do the phonics more in reception. So, and then kids are quite quick, but it's all taught holistically. It's not taught segregatedly. So you're teaching the sound, you're using the acronyms or the songs to teach the, like round the apple and down the leaf, so they get the formation right, and you're spending time on the formation before moving on to the next. And then obviously once you've taught several sounds, there are different schemes, and they might teach certain different, not necessarily from A, B, C, that order. It might be so M-A-S-D-T, and then they can straight away start making CVC words from that and nonsense words. So what do you have to say on that one, Laura?
Yeah, necessarily not the age, but the problem here is, Shazia, it's basically a competition. So when the students move on to grade 1, they are 5+. So at that point, if they are moving on to Cambridge school, they need to be writing, they need to know how to write the alphabet and probably the 2-letter words by then. So it's a rush here. So the kindergarten begins with, say, UKG, LKG and UKG, or FS1 or FS2, or it's nursery, and then pre-grade and grade 1. So that's how it is all based here. So because of this competition, so to survive, for a school to survive and to be getting in students, so what they do is they push in a whole load of writing activities for the teachers to be teaching online, and that is where this stress falls in, and all of this creativity comes down. It falls apart, and the teachers are completely focused on having to teach them, do this, do that, do this, do that, and that is where all most of the methodologies what we implemented into this session wouldn't come into practice if the teachers are amalgamated in a school curriculum. So they need to reach the target of whether they write or not, because this came into my own experience, because I'm at home this year, and then my nephew lives next door, and he's 3.5. So he'll be turning, he turned 4 in June, and in September so he wants to go into a Cambridge school, and he came to me, and with the greatest difficulty, I taught him STI. So I used the scheme of Jolly Phonics. So it's not, with all the methodologies which we actually suggested. So that's my way. And the school teacher, so my cousin comes in with 2 completed blank books. So C 100 times, A 100 times, T 100 times, M 100 times, and the child doesn't even know the form. So I said, I'm really sorry, you need to shift the school. Pay a bit more, put the child to a better school and shift the school. And that's what they actually did. I said that the child is in a great danger because he's going to hate school in September because it is such a rush. I said it is impossible that the teacher teaches numbers 1 to 10 within 2 weeks.
But can I just say,
the parent,
Noora, when we do maths mastery and we teach numbers, it's not just about the student knowing the numbers. I'm just going to quickly flick it to the assessment. It's not just about knowing the numbers. It's knowing, can they Do they just know their numbers 1 to 10 or 1 to 20? Or if you said to them, can you bring me 3 pencils? Show me 3 pencils. Can they actually do the one-to-one correspondence? Because in my maths mastery, Singapore maths approach to teaching maths, that's what it's all about. It's about conceptual understanding versus instrumental, or versus just procedures or memorization. Because if they don't have the concept, then that knowledge is not relevant. It might be relevant later, but at the moment, what we're doing is they're just rote learning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But do they have the one-to-one correspondence? Do they have the understanding of the number?
I know.
There. And that is what I think as practitioners, and I understand the competition. Because
yes, Shazia, that is the problem. So we can't totally blame the teachers here. So because of that problem, so basically, unfortunately, the educational heads do not know what trouble they are falling into. So when the child goes in, we see in these particular schools after grade 5, you don't see a good output in many of these schools. Like when it comes to imagination and creativity and all of that, the students are not successful because that is being grabbed out of their system when they were in their kindergarten. So because of that, there is a great impact in their future education. So that is why we don't see very many leaders nowadays in this part of the world, from this part of the world, because innovation is not happening. So this is sequentially happening. So which I feel from the heads and from the planners who are planning the curriculum, there needs to be a change, because it's pointless if we keep saying that the teachers need to do this, the teachers need to do that, because there's no capacity for the teacher to be doing this.
It's not just teacher agency, it's managerial down as well. And our session today, it wasn't about changing everything. It was more about exposure, giving everybody an exposure to, and having these kind of open-ended discussions. Again, it's about thinking, how can you authentically assess in UIFS while teaching online through the screen, because you're not having that face-to-face engagement. It makes it harder, but we can't say we're not able to do it. We still have to assess. So we do have to use e-portfolios and all the evidences that we get, because we must remember as UIFS practitioners, what is it that we need to remember? Obviously, we're teaching online, it's not the same. So there's lots of things we have to remember and maybe sometimes assume, because a lot of it goes down to knowing the student. But if there are areas that we are not clear about, how can we still get that evidence involving families? Because what I wanted now was, because I'm also conscious of time, is to remind teachers that teachers are known to be innovative, and teaching through the screen is no different. So yes, you're innovative in your classroom, you're creative, you're engaging students when you're there, but when you go online, it's no different. You still need to continue to be innovative. I'd rather have 1 week of innovative teaching than a career of doing what's always been done. That change mindset is important, because I want you now to reflect and think again. And that's why I made that disclaimer right at the start. This session wasn't about, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that because this is too advanced or maybe too much exposure. It was about exposing you to it, but enabling you to think about what is it that you can take away. Because I do want to remove the screen, because I want you to think about what are your takeaways. So when I do remove the presentation, I would like to just sort of say, can you share 1 or 2 things that you will take away and implement in your own practice? Because a successful training is when you take something away and you vouch to do it. Otherwise, it's very much the same, being passive. So I want you to think about that, because me and Noura will be choosing just randomly. And I'm sure you've all made notes. There's something there to take away. You might have devised a personal action plan for yourself. It depends on your own personal, professional aspiration. Accountability matters. We are teachers and we'll always be accountable. We have teacher standards in England. I'm assuming you have teacher standards in Sri Lanka. So you've got to think about let's get rid of the excuses and think about how we're going to be proactive and what's our plan or what's my plan. I know that Fatima, you mentioned about observations. They will happen. Your teaching is always going to be assessed, and it is about improvement all the time, continuously improvement. We're always lifelong learners. Our best practitioners are who are open to constructive criticism, who are always open to learning at all times in life, if you like. But I want to do something before I close the screen, and it's a quick game. And whether you have a pair of scissors and a piece of paper, A4 sheet of paper, I've got a, so what I would like you to do, and this is and it shouldn't, I'm gonna, so has everybody got an A4 sheet of paper and a pair of scissors?
I think this is.
I couldn't get one myself.
I'm going to stop the share for a moment because I can see you all then. Right, so your task is to, in this sheet of paper and with your pair of scissors, is to cut a hole. But the hole has to be large enough that if I were to stand up, it comes all over me, but it can come down over my shoulders, and there should be no dangling bits, and there should be no twisting and sticking. It needs to stay intact. Have a go. And thank you for those of you who got a camera on so I can see you're doing it. I can see Kalani, thank you. I think she should get a special award there for having her camera on. And Fatima, I just want you to have a go because the whole purpose of this is to have a go. Trishal, are you going to have a go?
I do not have A4s at my disposal, but they're tiny, but would they do?
A5, A4, this is, and I've just used a scrap piece of paper because I've got a print on one side. Because in a moment, I will model through the screen my solution. Now, if you were sitting in a classroom or in the same space, as you're doing this, I'm going to just sort of talk through. Everybody tends to think, oh, she's crazy. What's she talking about? How is this A4 sheet of paper going to be cut? And people start looking around. You can normally work in pairs and groups as well. And obviously you're not in my control because you're on the screen. But the idea is to collaborate. Maybe you get into groups of 2 and 3, you talk to each other, you figure out, you problem solve, and it's not an expensive task to do. So I usually let teachers have a go and see. Lots of people come up with different ways. So I'm going to put Kalani up. What have you come up with, Kalani? She's had a go. Look at that. That is fantastic. Do you see that? And it's large enough to come over her. Brilliant. But can you see the way? Kalani, can you show how you did it? How did you do it? If you turn the mic off, and then I'll share my way. And at least by the end of the session, people will see more than one way. And we've illustrated that it's about thinking out of the box. Spatial awareness, thinking out of the box. How did you do it? Turn your mic on.
As I took the paper and start with the corner and go round, 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 down.
Yeah.
Then finally I achieved.
But do you have any dangling bits or is it all joined together?
Yes.
It's all joined together. So she kind of went round and round in a loop. So the way I'm going to do it is you have your A4 sheet of paper and you fold it from the top. So this is my A4 sheet of paper. You fold it in half and you cut from the ends first. So you cut down where the folded end is. And then you cut from the other side where the folded end is. Okay, so this is it's a bit of psychology. So these are the ends that are folded at the top. And then you go from the bottom up, but you cut up, but you don't go right to the top. And then you come down and you don't go right to the bottom. And then you go up and then you go down. And then you go up. One thing I missed to do, one step, and you carry on doing this. what I was supposed to do was slice, and then before you open it, so before you open it, let me hold it up. This bit you don't cut and end you don't cut, but you need to open the middle here, here, and here, here. So the last two ends you don't. So when you open it up, you also get a nice, and if I were to cut it thinner, it would be even bigger. And this is a nice fun activity to do with any age students, to think about our teachers, because the whole purpose of this is we need to be, as teachers, to think out of the box, not look at something and say, I can't do it. And when we do it in a group, in a collaborative environment, it's okay to look left and right. That's what we would normally do, because we learn from each other. And there's no shame in learning from each other, because I think that's underrated. And just to end, because I know my screen is there, that was the activity that we did. Sorry. Right, so accountability matters. We had a go at that. What does the future look like? The future of education is going to be online some of the times. There is always going to be a human block, but we can already see that the future is moving towards educational disruption. There's going to be ed tech, there's talks about AI and so forth. So we just have to be, are you ready to embrace the change? Thank you for listening. Anything you would like to add, Noura? First and foremost.
Yeah, I think it's past time. I just want to share with them how to go about with the inquiry-based learning, like, you know, how teachers question, for example. Maybe in our next webinar we can, you know, go about those methodologies.
Yeah.
Yes.
And questioning is also part of engagement.
About inquiry-based learning.
Well, I'm going to say thank you very much, all of you. We've had 3 full hours of listening
without a break.
Without a break, and you know what? I have to now go and get my antibiotics, because the doctor wasn't prescribing to me, and you don't know how many tablets I've taken to keep my temperature down. That's why the window's open, because when your temperature changes, when yes, it was hitting 39, 102 degrees. So, and I thought I can't cancel because I have a commitment, and I think that is what teachers are all about. We don't cancel. We show up regardless of how we feel, and our energy levels stay the same regardless of how we feel. If you enjoyed the session, I would say share it. I did say to Noura before we were planning that I don't do lecture style sessions. I just don't like them. I don't like attending them because they put me to sleep, and they don't really help anybody, because you can pick up a book and read it, right? So practical ways of doing things are always more, I would say, beneficial. But I'm sure Trishal and Noura will look forward to any feedback and so forth. So,
I think we are almost getting our feedbacks already.
Next time, guys.
And thank you everyone, and thank you, Shazia.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we've put in a lot of work together.
Yes, now as we for the students, observation is one component that we discussed today, and also like questioning and assessment when we came summative and formative assessment.
In early years, it is about profiling, and it is going to be subject to the curriculum you're following. And it's not supposed to be, in my view, a tick sheet. It's more about looking at the holistic child and how they're developing in the 17 early learning goals. And that's where it will differentiate from the type of curriculum you follow, whether it's Sri Lanka, whichever curriculum format. I think with assessment, it is about the evidence. How do you collect the evidence or whatever criteria you're using, whatever assessment strategy you're using? And questioning, as Noura mentioned, is one strategy of drawing out knowledge and information from students. Second is observation. Third is about whatever they put on paper or whatever they show through their actions. So there are multiple ways. I think when you get to the older students, I don't know if that's where you were interested in as well, in the primary setting, it changes then. Then it's more about problem solving and how they apply their knowledge and skills. So you're giving them knowledge and skills, but opportunities for application. And in application comes connectivity, comes fluency, how they make those connections and become more authentic in recreation, that kind of thing. So
and Shazia, to be inculcating the inquiry-based learning and how to go about that and prove that on assessment is also, it will be also a very new technique in Sri Lanka, because basically what everyone does is the, you know, the formative and the summative assessment. So that will take us along further, I guess, Fatima.
Yes.
We have age bands, like what age to what age is the development stage.
And
like I said, it's just a generic, majority of students fit into that, but it is knowing it all goes back to knowing your student and knowing their potential and knowing the stage. So whether they're young or whether they're older, it's knowing this is where their developmental stage is and how much can I push them on. And those who are more able, how can I challenge them further and not hold them back? Assessment is a skill. It comes, it perfects through experience, and it's a big topic that requires significant time to go in. I think the main takeaway was how to be authentic in your assessments and not put assessments in front of students as a tick box exercise, but more so it's for their development. And I think in early years, it shouldn't be separate. It should be part of the in the moment teaching, in the moment planning, and you're assessing them all the time. So it's formative assessment. They do in early years here, they do a profile at the end of reception before they go into year one, but it's a collection, it's not an additional test. We don't put our young children through a formalized test. And I think that's where the challenge comes in terms of summative. It is still summative, but it's accumulation of the formative when you're in early years. However, when you go into primary, the philosophy changes or the ways of assessing change. Then there are elements of formative and summative where they do sit tests because you're assessing their application. But even that can be done in a very casual way where you can have a group of children doing a summative and the rest of the class learning, and you just sit with that focus group to watch their learning behaviors, how they attempt it, and that can be spread across the week so that you do 5 or 6 children in one focus group so that you can see it. You can use questioning, so it's not always necessarily paper-based because some students have the knowledge even when they're young, but they're not able to mark it down. They're not able to write it. That doesn't mean they don't know the numbers. So that would be the next stage of learning, or they don't know the maths. So it is, and every organization will have an assessment policy, and usually it's subject to that as well.
All right, perfect. So thank you very much, Dr. Shazia and Ms. Noura. Your deliverables were brilliantly articulated and extremely insightful. I personally loved the alphabet soup activity and also the game in the end. I'm going to try that after the session. I strongly believe everyone learned enough to elevate yourselves into a more competent teacher on the basis of online teaching. The awesome thing about online sessions is that you get to sit in the front seat, which means you always directly get to interact with your key speakers. And that was perfectly done by all of you. Everybody was engaged. Everybody was throwing their questions into the chat box. And we got great insights from some of our teachers. And it was a very balanced discussion, I would say, from both ends. It turned out to become a very valuable two-way discussion. Thank you for interacting and making this forum as resourceful as possible. And during the course of the lesson, as you saw, we received a lot of positive comments about the wealth of ideas and strategies Dr. Shazia and Ms. Noura were sharing. Sunday, I would say, is surely well spent. And as all good things must come to an end. So before that happens, I just want to share a quote I found from just right now. I was just found it right now, and it perfectly summarizes everything we spoke about today. And that is, if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. I believe that was the ultimate outcome of today's discussion. And I also personally want to remind you that your role as an early years teacher is vital, because you're engaging with children at the time when their creativity is at their peak, right? So how these children will grow to perceive what drives them is in your hands. You set their foundation. Encourage divergent thinking, not convergent thinking. With that, I wish to say good luck moving forward, and thank you in advance for paving brighter futures. And also, we mustn't forget to thank Dr. Shazia and Ms. Noura once again for for showing up on a Sunday. She's sick, but she made it. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Shazia was really sick, and thank you, Shazia, once again for a very productive week that we both got together for this hopefully successful event. Looking through the comments.
Noura, can I just say one thing before we close?
Yes, Shazia.
Had I not planned, had I not
exactly
planned, the sickness would have become a barrier. Because of the planning, the sickness didn't become, and I think that's the biggest message, that why planning is so important. Do not leave things last minute. I planned, I'm quite OCD in that respect. And remember I said to you yesterday, I'm not going to be in town. And I planned, like, I know this is happening, so this has to be done by this time. And I was working quite late to get it done when I emailed you. And so planning is the key to success. If you don't plan, you plan to fail. And it's simple as that. And plans can change, no problem. But make sure you plan and keep yourself organized. And on that note, I'm going to say have a lovely Sunday. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being here.
And bravo to the management and team of St. George Teacher Training Institute for hosting the program. It was surely resourceful for everyone. I took some notes as well, although it's not relevant to me. So that tells everything about today's session. Thank you very much once again. Thanks to everybody that joined and stuck around with us till the end. Have a pleasant evening, and as always, stay safe. Take care, everyone.